Okay, I'd like to call this meeting back to order. Do you, Mr. Carmel, did you want to do a report from closed session?
Thank you, Madam President. The
Yeah.
board just returned from a closed session where it held a public employee performance evaluation for the general manager. No action was taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go to the consent agenda. Um, and is there anything that anybody would like to pull off the consent agenda? Nope.
I don't want to pull anything from the consent agenda, but I want to clarify a couple of items in the expenditure report.
That's fine. You go right ahead.
Thank you. So first off, there's an item here on page 20 from Paso Robles Ford, and it's listed as Water Department, change oil and rotate tires on 2017 Ford F-250, and it's over $1,000. So I questioned the general manager on this in our boardwalk, and I think Mr. Green can kind of bring us up to speed on this, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of our older now in the fleet water trucks. That's a 4x4 that year has been known to have susceptible problems with alignment and steering issues. So it was a little bit more in the detail of that that's listed in that description. So that was an alignment and tires and other pieces to that as well.
I think there's also work done on the brakes,
Brakes and rotors,
right?
um,
So I just
air
wanted to,
filter, cabin air filter. So yeah, it got pretty pricey, but once you got into rotors and brakes, it got pretty pricey.
right. I just was bringing this up in case members of the public were looking at that and wondering, well, how could that possibly be? And then also, just my own curiosity here on page 23, SLO County APCD, Air Pollution Control District, new equipment permit to operate something, and it's got this figure of $2,872.71. So the fact that I don't know what's being operated and this very interesting number, what is that all about?
That's your authority to construct from the Air Pollution Control District for the new generator per the SST program at the wastewater plant. That's your tier 4 level generator. So yeah, that's all permitting, and that's your ATC, which again is authority to construct.
Obviously, you don't have any control over this very unusual number, though, right?
I wish I did, but no, unfortunately, yeah, those
Just
are fees set by.
all right. Thanks.
Anybody else? Or do you have anything else? Director Farmer? No. No? Okay. So let's go ahead. Do I have a motion? Oh, is there any public comment on anything on the consent agenda?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So we need a motion.
Yep. I move that we adopt the content, approve the items on the consent agenda.
And I'll second that.
Director Gray,
Aye.
Director Farmer,
Aye.
Director Dean,
Aye.
Vice President Thomas,
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye. Okay, so let's go ahead and do agenda item 6C because this is something that Director Gray wanted to speak to kind of in close proximity to 6D. So Mr. McElhaney?
Thank you, Madam President. Agenda item 6C, discussion and consideration of board approval of the East Ranch Community Park Phase 3 plan, and if approved, to direct staff to issue an RFP for engineering services to develop detailed plans and cost estimates for its implementation. We really don't know what the fiscal impact would be. We would merely be guessing at this point. And with that, I'll turn it over to the board.
I have a question. So so it looks like this is asking us to approve the park phase 3 plan. So if we don't approve it, are there other things that we might do based on the agenda item?
It is kind of a two-parter. And one could potentially answer the other, and I'll let Mr. Green chime in on that. But ultimately, we don't really know where some of these items in the conceptual plan can or can't go. There's a lot of issues with the floodplain and setbacks. And we really won't know until we meet with the county on this in a pre-application meeting. And Mr. Green will touch base on it, but what we have now, this conceptual plan, isn't really enough detail for staff at the county level to really give their optimal input. We've had a couple of these pre-application meetings, and they're very detailed in terms of what they ask at these meetings and provide very detailed notes. So there's a potential that you cannot approve the park plan and direct staff to go out to an RFP to figure out what this is going to look like, or potentially what it's going to cost to construct. But as we discussed in strategic planning, it's difficult from a finance, facility and resources department, because no matter what those numbers come out to be, we're just not really funded for it. It also goes into the fact that based on the motion for the skate park, that we could potentially apply for this LWCF grant for the community park, but there's a huge matching component to that, which also would require encumbering general fund reserves. And if we think about what that community park could cost, I mean, Mr. Green and I have speculated in terms of permitting, environmental monitoring. I mean, it could be 600,000, 500,000, 700. We just don't know. So the direction to go out to RFP might help answer some of those things about what can go in the park and what can't, what it would cost. And so that's kind of why it's a two-parter. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I guess in theory, you could not approve the conceptual plan, but also direct staff to take it out to have it designed and brought back with a lot more detail on what can go in the park, but it's going to cost general fund money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I should
Wait,
provide
Yeah.
a framing comment.
Well, wait.
Yeah, yeah.
Since
I have a question.
Director Dean's was the first light. Okay.
Okay, so if we go out to an RFP for the engineering services to develop the detailed plans and cost estimates, what they will be given is the conceptual plan to look at? And will they be able to tell us what can and can't go, for example, in the floodplain or in the setback and all that? Will that answer those questions, as well as what it would actually cost to do the plan as close to the conceptual plan as possible?
I believe it will. I'll pass it over to Mr. Green, but I believe they'll take the conceptual plan as a guiding light and then create their design and engineering plans, and they should be able to tell us roughly what the cost would be. Mr. Green?
Great. Yeah. So that kind of more detailed plan is your linchpin to permitting right here. They're going to tell you what features can go where. And then kind of the caveat in between this two, every feature will be required to have an ADA access walkway, like the ones we just poured here the other day at the restroom. That'll need to connect to each feature. So that'll be kind of a distinguishing feature, is how you progress in priority for which feature and which you install where. So that is kind of the linchpin to developing this, is you need something, you need some figures on a paper, some plots on a point on a map to show the county in that pre-app meeting. This is our intentions. This is what we want to work with. And then you kind of collaborate and work together with them from there.
Sure. Do we have any idea what this will cost to do this? Or that's what the RFP is for, to get a bid, right?
Right. Well, yeah, and that's why you kind of want that detailed plan, so you can kind of kick the ball around with county. And so these features are going to be finally what we are going to install and where, and then you get your engineering estimate based on that.
Yes.
Well,
Director
thank
Gray.
you, President Scott. So we haven't had the pre-app meeting yet with
No.
the county. I do have also some experience with those. I know that the county, before you go in there, you may not know a lot about what the county would want for this project. And it seems to me that if you're going to have an RFP for detailed engineering services and detailed plan, you have to kind of get the county's input first, because that could change a lot of what this plan does, because they will talk about the floodplains, they'll talk about drainage, they'll talk about soils, and in addition to the stuff that Mr. Green was talking about, and they'll give you a long list of things you have to look into. Then if you want to go an RFP, that seems to me the time to do it, when you have more information to give to the consultant, the consulting engineer. Another larger issue here, I'll just touch on spending money at this point on this plan, is we don't have the money for this kind of thing. I mean, we don't have a Parks and Recreation budget. So I think the thinking, for instance, that was behind the MOU we were discussing, is that we want to have a relationship with the private fundraising entities, whereby we are essentially the provider of the land, and that project costs and maintenance costs are paid for by the private partners. I think the one thing that hasn't been done yet that will need to be done early on for this plan is to have some kind of private entity up and running, as it were, a 501c3, a Friends of the Park or whatever, to start, paying for things. And I'm not sure it's a good precedent to set to pay significant money now for engineering studies before that side of the equation, the private sector, that nonprofit side of the equation, has even come into existence. So I'd have reservations about approving this for those two reasons.
Yes, Vice President Thomas.
Thank you, President Scott. And yeah, all good points. And just wanted to, frame, and it's, I think Director Dean made this, clear, but this is what was presented by the ad hoc committee is the conceptual plan. This is kind of the what, not the details. And an ad hoc committee doesn't have that wherewithal to take that next step. And, you think in terms of conceptual alternatives, and then final design and construction. This is not the, let's get the RFP to go to construction, not even close. This is way back in the conceptual stage. This is, okay, let's spend in terms of a project life cycle, if a project, say a project costs $1,000, in that first phase, maybe $5 of that money is spent. And this is just a fraction of that. So the concept here is sort out what it would cost to get us to that stage roughly, and also well put the comments about community partnership. And we already have community council telling us, we've got your disc golf funded. We're ready. Just show us the permit. Let us work out whatever we need to work out. And, and it's there. Lions has said, we want to fund the picnic area and gazebo. It's like, thank you, Lions. So they're like, okay, let us help you. And so this is the pros committee can't do this on their own. This is, okay, if we in fact have Parks, Recreation, and Open Space as one of the powers assigned under LAFCO, let's do that tiny bit to at least get us to the point where we know what it's going to take. That's so this is a relatively small piece.
But didn't I hear it was about 100,000?
No.
How much would it be? The engineering.
I'm not certain of the cost for the detailed drawings.
Yeah.
I've not seen that quotation or
Do you
proposal.
have an
If it does.
idea?
Matt had,
Wouldn't that-
Not yet.
had commented to me, this was, you're probably talking like 20
Mm.
something. But, oh goodness, no.
Okay.
This is what we'd be RFPing for, though.
Right.
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 Yeah. So
And,
Right.
and we'll know when we get that, but that's, what the general manager indicated to me was that I think it's going to land 20 something.
Okay.
It'll come back here, I believe. I don't know.
Yes, Director Gray.
Yeah, just before, after public comment, I have a kind of a proposal to make, so I'll
Okay.
wait for public comment.
Okay, all right. Oh, Director Farr?
Thank you, President Scott. I was talking with someone in the community who's fairly involved recently, and she made the comment that, and I'll preface her comment by saying that I really appreciate what the Pros Committee has done, and especially what Jeff Wilson and Shannon Sutherland, especially Shannon, and her passion for the community park. And I think all of the presentation that they've given is it's really heartwarming to see how much they want to, how could we say it, uplift the energy in the community by having this park. But this person was saying that, especially with regard to the cost, with just the estimated costs that they've come up with, Shannon and Jeff, it's over $200,000 without the multi-purpose field. So it's probably going to be maybe $250,000 for all these particular projects out there, plus the engineering and everything. And she was saying that this should be a low priority considering all these other costs that we're accumulating with time. And well, I was one of the people that said, well, nothing should ever be out there. But now I'm kind of warm to the idea because I just see people out there enjoying themselves. But moving forward at this time, of course, this is about just getting the engineering tied together. So maybe that's not a bad idea. But the overall cost of this, we should probably move fairly slowly, even with the donations we're getting from Lions and the CCC. So that's just my feeling on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Farmer. So, are we ready to take public comment? Okay. Is there any public comment in-house? Nope. Any public online?
Yes, Jim Berenger.
Hello, Mr. Behringer.
Hello and welcome. I think that you underestimated the amount of detail that Shannon and Jeff have done. And they have met with the county on several occasions that I'm aware of, and put a pretty good map as to where something's going to be. And I think you could piecemeal this. If somebody wants to do disc golf, have them go to the county and get a permit if they need to, as your agent, and install it. If we want to do the gazebo, we can do a prefab one. We can go to the county and get answer their questions, and piece by piece, rather than spending a lot of money up front and delaying things. Disc golf could be in place by the 4th of July, as could that picnic area. And you don't have to worry about money. And then as you want to do a play field, then if you don't have anybody that's going to donate that, then go out and have an engineering study. That's just my opinion. I say let's do it. Move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Behringer.
We'll take charge
Thank
of that.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Thank
Oh.
you. Yes. Any other public comment? Okay.
Yes,
Wanna
Christina
speak just a
Galloway.
minute. Do you want to speak before that?
No, I just wanted to ask a question about this item. Should I ask it now or wait for Ms.
No,
Galloway?
go ahead and ask it.
Okay, so are we looking at getting a detailed cost estimate for the entire plan as a single project? Or is it possible to do what the last speaker said and just look at a project at a time?
I think if you're asking me as far as permitting goes, I'd get it all permitted at once and then install those annually or as the money comes in. But I think you'd want to permit that project all at once.
One more question.
Yes.
Okay, so if you permit that project all at once, when you get the RFP, will we be able to get the estimate for each individual project that's on there? So that we can know whether we can afford to do one project at a time?
I think we'd call that out in the RFP to detail each feature separately in the proposal.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, online?
Yes, Christina Galloway.
Hi, Christina Galloway, Cambria.
Good
Uh,
morning.
Hi, good morning. I think I'm just a little taken aback that after this morning's discussion on the skate park, we're like right back to a discussion about spending more general fund money and staff time on another park. Personal for me, in light of the funding challenges that the district faces, including the funding of our fire department. It seems like focusing energy and resources on the East Ranch Park right now is a fairly irresponsible use of taxpayer money and time. I do want to highlight that the CCSD has stopped accepting retired lots from the Land Conservancy due to district budget and staffing constraints, which make the safe management of those lots beyond what the district can currently afford. And notably, these lots would be invaluable to Cambrians as we work towards developing emergency evacuation routes and strategies, while also serving as wildlife corridors. I think as we've witnessed by the drama that played out earlier today, there's a benefit to both the district and ratepayers when funds are managed responsibly and passion projects have clear, reliable pathways to funding. So respectfully, it would be appreciated if the district would stay focused on completing existing projects and more pressing issues and table these types of elective financial commitments on recreation to a later date. And I don't mean to be anti-disc golf, Jim, but I just, I think that there's some serious concerns about public safety and management of lots that we've already accepted and infrastructure needs that should take priority. So thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Wilson.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson?
Hi, everyone. President Scott, thank you. Needless to say, I have a little bit of an investment in this subject here. And I'd like to just spend a couple of minutes kind of maybe restating a few things that Shannon and I discussed before that are salient to this specific issue before us, and some concerns. First off, again, I want to say, this is not a new subject. This is 30 years in the making. This goes back to 1994, and we did, I think, a really, really great job of getting community feedback on this, and there is just overwhelming support for this, and we feel strongly that we have the ability over time to generate the funds for each project, including construction permit, environmental mitigation, and actual construction costs through private fundraising. What we're asking for here is, we're a bit of a chicken or the egg, is we need, as we talked about last time, we need the ability to have a more detailed drawings and assessments, and like Karen, to answer your question about setback, right? We don't know. ADA pathways and other elements that the county will be able to help us understand more specifically after we're able to provide this, I get what I'll call an interim step, which I think Vice President Thomas referred to. So we are in a bit of a chicken and egg here, and respectfully ask that the minimum amount of funds that, and I don't mean to dismiss funding, I get that, and to Ms. Galloway's concerns, I get this, but this is a small lift to help us get something extremely beneficial and supported by the community finally off the ground after 30 years. And I wholeheartedly support approving issuance of an RFP. I would like to just very briefly, though, indicate in prior conversations with Mr. Green, and Mr. Green, I don't mean to cross you here, but we had talked about with Mr. Sereno and others about packaging these in pieces. So say, for instance, we've got funding from Mr. Behringer, we've got funding for the disc golf. We would probably need limited, if any, funding for the loop trail. We could package those three into a single construction permit, save money, and environmental mitigation, and coordinate construction in a way that we would be able to have, in particular, the environment mitigant, say Padre, be able to look at all three things that are going on at the same time. So we wouldn't have to have 3 RFPs for 3 separate projects.
Mr.
requiring-
Wilson, could
Yes.
you summarize in a sentence?
Yeah. So
Thank
I think sorry, thank you for your patience.
Sure.
I just want to support this next move. Otherwise, we are back to square one, and we're going to be another 20 years before we get this park. Thanks very much.
Yes. Vice President Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, President Scott. And I just wanted to point out, just as you know, the general manager had the gentleman from Stillwater earlier to kind of explain. This is a scenario where if Mr. Wilson or Sutherland were able to be here today, I would have asked them to present. So if there's more need of Q&A from the board, Jeff is the representative of the ad hoc. So I think it would be appropriate to give him context beyond public comment if appropriate. And I also was just thinking of an analogy, old-fashioned motorcycle, they start with there's a little thing on the side, on the right side. You get up and you jump on that Kickstarter and the engine turns over. The cost of that Kickstarter, in terms of the overall assembly of that motorcycle, is very small fraction. Every internal combustion engine motor vehicle has this thing called a starter motor. And, I've replaced those. It's like $100, $200 for the starter motor. You can't start that engine without the starter motor. The ad hoc committee is not asking the CCSD to fund the engine, the wheels, the chassis. Just can y'all put the energy into the starter motor? And that's what this is like the kickstart to get enough information that the context is there, that whatever avenues need to happen for the funding, those avenues, have something they can link into.
Any other public comment?
No.
Yes, Mr. Judzik.
Thank you so much. Dennis Dujic, Cambria resident. I couldn't help myself. I had to speak at this point. I appreciate Christina Galloway's comments and all the comments that have been raised and some really good discussion. But I think the Kickstarter was the best example. And, I was just, reviewing CCSD's mission and vision statements and core values. And, parks are right up there. Parks are fundamental to what CCSD does. So when you have this much support, you got the Lions, you've got people standing out there ready to finish the job, then this is the exception that proves the rule. This is the exception that says this is the time to invest that upfront Kickstarter money to make sure that your obligation to supply the parks that the people are looking for is taken care of. And when you have that kind of local support, that's what gives you takes you over the top in terms of a decision. So I would strongly recommend that the district kickstart this program that's been so long in coming and accept the public's commitment to make it happen. Recognizing that some of it will likely be done in parts and pieces, but maybe not as much as you think. So it's a good move in any case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dudzik. We had another hand that was raised online.
Are you allowing the same person to speak
No.
twice?
No.
Okay. So Claudia Worthen,
Okay. Miss Worthen? Does she hear us?
I got it now. Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
you know what? I really appreciate what you want to do for this for the East Park. I've been involved in some of their meetings and I think it's great. But I have to say that there's some other things that need to be done before you spend money on this. I think that it can be done if you're a nonprofit. It doesn't cost anything to get an encroachment permit. Get the encroachment permit. You know, put in the disc golf. You know, put in a path. You know, those things are just easy too. Just do it. You know, so. But I'm really concerned about the general manager directing people and staff to not do the job that they're supposed to do. My particular case is because it has to do with Beautify Cambria, but David Aguirre's been told that he's not allowed to refurbish those trash
Miss
cans.
Worthen, I think you're off of the
The point
topic.
is my point is this: if you have the money to work on the park, which benefits a handful of people, why can't you have the money to work on something that affects? Excuse me, I guess I'm sick. That affects everybody that walks through town or drives through town, residents and commercial people. I'm just talking about the expenditure of money at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another person?
yes. Crosby and Laura Swartz.
Okay. The Schwartzes?
Yes, yes, good afternoon, everybody. I'm sorry, I just have to jump in here. And community parks are wonderful, and I understand it started since 1994. The thing is, the acceptance of our environmental parcels started in 1984, and there is no money to take care of them. We keep trying to get rid of them, but that is an obligation that started before the park. So, you know, again, I want to put the O back in prose. And I have no problem spending money on the other things. Just give the environmental parcels equal treatment. If there's money to be spent, there's a lot of people that really do support keeping some green open spaces throughout town and in conservation areas. So spend money equally on PRO. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else online?
No.
Okay. Yes. Mr. Howell.
Thank you. This is, you may have already talked about this, so forgive me. I understand this item it's asking for staff to direct staff to issue an RFP or a report. It's sort of the preliminary. The question that maybe I missed is what would be the cost, the anticipated cost of issuing the RFP, not the responses, but the issuing the RFP itself? What would that cost us?
President Scott, I believe there's not much cost associated with issuing the RFP outside of staff time. And that staff time is coming from utilities.
Okay.
So we've had our internal conversations about utilities' role.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, Director Thomas. Vice President Thomas.
Yeah, I just, thank you very much, President Scott, and your call how to proceed with this, but the concept, as it's worded, the concept was, kind of two-part when you get to the point of determining whether it's time for a motion. And there's first, all right, what do y'all think? Do you kind of like the conceptual plan? Is this, do you accept, because when the pros ad hoc committee presented this, it was presentation with the context that, all right, soak on it, and then at a subsequent meeting, let us know, basically, do you like the plan? And then, okay, that's good. And then next, all right, can we take it just that next step?
Thank you. Yeah, Director Farmer.
Thank you, President Scott. So I'd like to ask Mr. Green, because he was saying that he felt the best thing to do would be the cost estimates for everything and, get the RFP on all of that instead of doing them one particular project at a time. So first off, how long would you anticipate a ballpark figure to get these cost estimates and implementing them? How long is that going to take? And first, hiring somebody to do that, how long is that process going to take? Have any idea?
You mean as far as like getting an engineer's estimate once we get detailed plans?
Right.
or- I mean, an engineer's, that takes about 2 weeks. If
2
you have a
weeks.
set of plans and you're getting a construction estimate based off of an engineering plan set.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it takes about 2 weeks. That's
Okay.
my understanding. That's what we had the turnaround when we look for the construction for the skate park.
So we're not necessarily anticipating on the horizon here it taking months for us to implement, getting the details and the cost estimates and that type of thing. It's just not going to be that long.
No, that's the permitting phase.
Yeah, and
Unfortunately.
And I think I just want to clarify because all they're asking for right now is the
Sorry.
the what?
The design?
No, not even the design, just formal design. Yes. It's not about construction or anything like that. It's just the design is what they're asking for.
So if I could get back to what Mr. Barringer was saying about, well, hey, we can do this in the next couple of months, so to speak. And pardon me if maybe I'm not interpreting everything correctly. But it was mentioned earlier that both picnic areas and the disc golf course, they're like already, the monies are already committed to do those items. So ballpark figure, how long would it take for this process to take place to where we could at least do, first off, these 3 items that I just mentioned? How far down the road is that? So we can get some kind of idea as to how we can get this slowly moving forward.
Absolutely. So if you had engineered drawings and we could submit those to county planning, it would be 3 to 6 months if it was a minor use permit. Now, if we go into a larger, grander scale where this turns into a coastal development project, then we're on the other side of that where it's probably 6 months to a year.
All right, thanks.
Yes, Director Gray.
Yeah, thank you, President Scott. Yeah, I guess I go back to my point earlier about we don't really have a clear idea of what the permitting requirements will be, what the county will want. And then Mr. Green just mentions that it could be a coastal development permit as opposed to a minor use permit. I still think that is something that it would be very helpful to know in advance before we put it out to an RFP, because then we'll kind of have a better idea what we're looking for in terms of requirements. And this is where the pre-app meeting with the county comes in. I mean, it's true now. It's true that the ad hoc committee has met with county staff and so forth, but we're the applicant and we have not done that yet. And that meeting is usually very useful because it brings together all the relevant county agencies and state, often state, and maybe even Coastal Commission, just to analyze the outlines of what we're talking about. And then they come back with very specific questions and instructions about what you will have to look into as you develop your plan. They're used to dealing with conceptual plans too. They don't need detailed plans for that meeting. And I think we need to do that first before we go ahead with the, because when it comes back, we might want to approve something somewhat different.
Yeah.
So I think having directing the staff to go forward with the pre-application meeting with the county is what I would propose at this point.
Yes, Director Dean.
I appreciate all of the hard work that the pros ad hoc committee put into doing this conceptual plan. I think they did a great job. And I think we should see whether all those things that they're asking for can go where they want to put them, what restrictions are as far as the floodplain, the setbacks and all of that. And is it possible to get that information from a pre-application meeting with the county? And what would the pre-application meeting in the county cost? Is there a charge for going to the county and doing that?
I'll turn it over to Mr. Green, but Mr. Green did have some concerns about the way that that conceptual plan would read to those regulators. But I think it's $1,500 or something like that.
It's 1,000 for a pre-app.
You turn on your, yeah.
And do you think at that pre-app meeting, from where these things are drawn on the conceptual plan now, based on the fact it does show where the floodplain is and all of that, that they would be able to give us an idea whether those particular projects can be put in those locations?
I'm confident they would, but we'd have to come up again. A lot of features and a lot of things have ebbed and flowed and changed over just the year of my experience with it. So I'd say get a dedicated features, get a dedicated location. And I think that would be enough to get this up and running. This would have enough legs to get this at county, where we could establish, we already have the 100-year floodplain. We've discussed this with the restroom. We have that layer. So we already have all that information that's been provided. But I'd get definitely down what you want to do for features and then location. And I think that would be enough to get a pre-application meeting with the county.
So is it possible with this agenda item to direct pros to come back with a more detailed plan like Mr. Green suggested and come back and look at it and then make a decision to move forward to a pre-application plan? Can we do that now or?
I think Mr. Director Gray has, no? Okay,
No, I'm fine.
yeah. So, Mr. Carmel, based on the agenda item, is that a direction we could go?
I think it would be okay. I mean, it's certainly not perfect, but I think it fits within the description that we have roughly.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So yes, Vice President Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, President Scott. And the general manager, I'll ask in a moment, our general manager, kind of back to, it was his concept to bring this onto the agenda, and it sounded like a good idea. And to help us understand, like, really what we wanted to accomplish, what Director Gray was describing, I expected that would be one of the outcomes of the scope of work. And our utilities department has so many projects that are so critical that are water and wastewater. And it sounds like what we're asking utilities manager Green to do is do the engineering on this and, run it through the permitting. It feels like the concept of this is, let's get our utilities manager the engineering support to get to that next stage. And I don't know how to properly quantify what that next stage is, but it clearly includes what Director Gray was describing. So General Manager McElhaney, if you could kind of put it in a package, like what will this get us? Because it feels like, there's this conversation on RFP is blending from too much to, like what is in that scope?
After hearing Mr. Green talk and saying that we could get some answers on some of those locations in the pre-application meeting, if we get some of those early answers that say this can go here or can't go here, then I'm going to hop in line with Mr. Green and say, I think we should do the pre-application meeting. And then based on that, if we get positive answers and we can come back and discuss the RFP.
Yeah.
Our initial impression is that that initial conceptual plan wasn't going to be enough for the county to really digest. But it sounds like we have a different opinion, and especially Mr. Director Gray had his meeting with the county on one of his projects. And I'm guessing those plans weren't all that tight either. So I think we can move to the pre-application meeting and go from there.
So do I have, is there anything else from the public? No? Okay.
One more question. Yeah.
You have another question? Okay, Vice President Thomas.
Yeah, thank you. And, you know, if the motion that someone's going to make includes, direct the pros to develop the next level of detail of plan, because I did, hear a hint of that. Consider sending that back to pros to create that next level of detail. It sure feels like then you're asking the pros committee to get involved in operations work. It also, I can just imagine the blank stares of, like, what do you want us to do? And we're not engineering staff. How on earth? And
I don't see it that way, but
I don't know. I just kind of a reaction. But yeah.
yes.
My question is if the current conceptual plan was detailed enough
Right.
for the pre-application
Right.
meeting.
That's my,
That was the only reason why I said if it is not,
Yeah.
then perhaps the pros ad hoc
Yeah.
committee could define it a little more and bring it back, and then we could give that to them.
Right.
I'm not asking them to do it. I was asking the pros ad hoc committee to define it a little clearer, but if that's not necessary,
Yeah.
then I'm fine with just going to a pre-application meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
but, that would
Director
be
Gray.
that would be my view too.
Okay.
So can we ask Mr. Green if he feels comfortable with that?
I'd like a little tighter scope and features and maybe some cost estimates on the structures or whatever we're going to use in there. But I think at this point, if we're just kicking the ball back around between committees and stuff at every month, let's just take it to county and see what they say.
Yeah, I don't think we're kicking it back. I think basically what we want to know is the plan as it is enough for you to have your pre-application meeting?
It would be enough.
Okay.
On my projects, I like to take more, but I think in this is what we have here. So let's just get out in front of it and see what we can do.
And do you think that they could say to you, you don't need a permit for a gazebo, or you, I mean, they might be able to say that.
It would be my interpretation that the county says you never need, you never
need a
says you
permit
need
for
a
everything.
permit for something.
Okay.
But yeah, that'd be great if they would glean something
Yeah.
or, give us a little something
Yeah.
pro bono.
And Mr. Berenger said he would go get the permit.
Fantastic.
And I'm not sure that's going to work, but do I have?
We'll put his name on it then
Yeah,
as
we'll
well.
have him
Thank
put
you,
your-
Jim.
I guess I'll
Okay.
take a shot at it here. And I'm gonna go back to the item here,
6C?
6C, yeah. Everything's out of order now. Yeah, on item 6C, I move that we direct staff to conduct a pre-application meeting with the county on the East Ranch Community Community Park Phase 3 plan, and after that, with the county's input, bring it back to the board for consideration.
I'll second that. Unless
Yeah,
Director
Mr.
Thomas has
Yeah.
an amendment.
Vice President Thomas
Vice President,
has his light on.
sorry.
Thank you. The second has been made.
No, you can
Uh,
still.
Yes, so I would like to offer a friendly amendment, which is that the board concurs with or approves the conceptual plan.
I'd be a little reluctant on that because I think we want to see what comes back after the county has given us their input. Because the staff might make some changes to the plan based on what the county says. And it would be an improved plan because there might be some issues with floodplain and so forth that we and location that we can refine.
How about accept and file?
And accept and file the plan. Yeah, accept and file the plan and direct staff.
Yeah.
Okay. To go forward with the pre-planning meeting.
Your light's still on. Do you want to say no? Okay.
Phone is by
Mine.
Oh.
Okay, let's have a vote.
Director Gray,
Aye.
Director Dean,
Aye.
Director Farmer,
Aye.
Vice President Thomas,
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye. Yep, so let's go to then 6B. Back and forth, back and forth. Okay, Mr. McElhaney, please tell us about this.
Thank you, Madam President.
Yeah.
Agenda item 6B, discussion and consideration of the introduction of ordinance 01-2025, adding chapter 6.05 to the Cambria Community Service District Municipal Code regarding weed abatement standards. Introducing and adopting the weed abatement standard ordinance will not have an immediate fiscal impact. However, once it's adopted, we could see some significant amount of staff time moving forward to ensure the safety of well-being of the residents, and the ability to enforce it will create a significant amount of staff time, namely the fire chief. With that, I can turn it over to the fire chief at the podium and over to the board.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so, excuse me. This was, as you know, it was brought to the board at our last board meeting, and then it went before the Fire Protection Committee for revisions and discussion, and then to be brought back to the board for implementation or discussion. And so that's what we've done. We've taken the last ordinance that we initially proposed. We made the changes. I believe there were more changes made or suggested this morning. I think that was handed out correctly. Okay. So I'm open to any questions.
Thank you. Board members?
Hey,
Yes,
so
Director Dean.
we talked last time about the term remove weeds and whether or not that meant pull the weeds out, which would cause bare dirt and possibility of mud flow. And I think we talked about saying cutting weeds and grasses down to 3 to 4 inches rather than remove them. And I see this says remove. I have a couple of, you want me to get all the questions
Yes.
out at once?
Yes.
Okay, and that's on page 125. On page 126, under 6.05.040, under C, big C, small c, land kept in a predominantly natural state as habitat for wildlife, plant, or animal communities. Are we talking about areas such as Strawberry Canyon? And if we are, do they qualify for an exemption under D? And do they have to go ahead and notify the fire department that they qualify for an exemption? Or do we need to find out from green space if this is an exemptable location? Because it is, they mainly just keep the trails clear and they consider it habitat. At least when I was on the board of green space, they considered that habitat for all the wildlife. So those are my questions.
Absolutely. And to answer a couple of those, so that the remove is a fairly common term in any ordinance. It's very, we can absolutely change that, but again, it is very common for them to say that. And the county, just for a little bit of background, so the county has proposed a new ordinance within county areas, and so it hasn't been approved yet. We don't know when it's going to be approved, hopefully soon. But their terminology is very much the same as what we're proposing in ours. As far as the Strawberry Canyon area, those would all be, the burden of proof would be on
the entity owning those properties. So they would have to bring that to us, and I've had many talks with Green Space about how that process looks and what that's going to entail. But it would be up to them to bring that information to us, so we have it on record, so we have documents that are stating, hey, this is what the parameters are set by the Coastal Commission, or that it's an ESHA or whatever the case may be. So again, that would be on the individual property owners or the responsible parties.
And can I add something to that? C also, as a prerequisite, requires that any land beyond 50 feet from improved streets which has been acquired or managed for one of the more of the following purposes, as declared by the county, state, or federal government. I don't know whether that's true under these circumstances, whether that declaration has been made, but it's an important part of that section.
And that was proposed to be removed, correct?
No, it was supposed to be modified
Or
to make a little more sense. That's the handout that the board and
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
Yes,
Thank you,
Director
Scott.
Ray.
Yeah, maybe since Mr. Carmel is talking, we do have to deal with some suggested changes that he has brought forward. I don't know if this is a good time to do that or not. That was one of them.
I think it is.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
Mr. Carmel, there's several other, was 3 other amendments or changes you wanted to make, right?
let me walk through those. In the first section, 605010, I'm proposing restoring a finding, what I consider, in the context of ordinances, it's really important that you include findings to explain why you're developing this ordinance. And in this section, the first one of those findings gives the statutory powers and the purpose. The second really kind of discusses, we have another regulation, the FHFRP. And then the third one, which really was intended to show the need for this particular new ordinance, was removed. And it didn't make it had some weak language in it. I restored it, and I can read it just so that everyone knows what I'm talking about. That would be weeds, grass, and combustible vegetation growing or accumulated upon private property within the district, which do or will, when dry, create a fire hazard, and which by virtue thereof constitute a danger to the property and to the neighboring property, or the health and welfare of residents of the property and the people residing in the vicinity, are hereby declared to constitute a public nuisance. That was the declaration of nuisance, and it's in the context of the law. It's pretty important that we include it. The second one is to 605020. And that's just because I explain it there. There's a reference in 05004B to hazardous trees. And so we just figured we'd define what that is. It's actually what the definition, and anyway, that's more of a cleanup. Then we have C, which I just babbled through, which really just cleans up, that's in 040. It cleans up some weak language. Right now it says, any land beyond 50 feet from improved streets as declared by the county, state, or federal government, which has been acquired or managed for one of the following purposes. It sounds like they have to declare that it's 50 feet for the improved streets. The revision is any land beyond 50 feet from improved streets, which has been acquired or managed for more of the following purposes as declared by. So that's just a clarification. And then the last one, that is to 050, the first paragraph. Let me get there.
Yeah. See what.
There's again some kind of awkward language that I'll read, excuse me. Weeds, grass, combustible vegetation growing or accumulated upon private property within the district, which do or will, when dry, create a fire hazard, and which by virtue thereof constitute a danger to, in parenthesis, the owned or neighboring property, or the health and welfare of residents, in parenthesis, of the subject property or in the vicinity, hereby declared to be to constitute a nuisance. I just slightly modified that, so it now reads, I'll start from create a fire hazard in which by virtue thereof constitute a danger to the property and to neighboring property or to the health and welfare of residents of the property and the people residing in the vicinity are hereby declared to constitute a public nuisance. They're really just clarifications, but those are the 4 changes I think probably would improve the proposed ordinance a little bit.
Thank you. I had a quick question about the second correction there, in section 6.05.020 on the definitions. Would you, what you have now is a paragraph of 2 sentences. One is just about trees. In the context of fire hazard fuel reduction shall mean, or should say shall mean, any woody perennial plants with a single trunk or multiple stems that can potentially contribute to fire risk. Then it says in particular, trees with low moisture content, excessive deadwood, or that are positioned too close to other vegetation or structures can increase the likelihood of fire spread and intensity. Did the term hazardous trees refer to that second category, that second sentence, or is it supposed to be? Did you intend to have it basically to be defined by that whole paragraph?
It's intended to be defined by the whole paragraph. If you don't think that fits, we don't necessarily have to make that change, or we can apply it just to the second part.
Yeah,
to me, it's not
my thought was to apply it to the second part and have a separate definition. I don't know.
And that would work certainly as well. We're trying to clear up the fact that it refers to hazardous trees as defined in the ordinance, and there wasn't a definition of hazardous trees. So your fix, which is to have a separate definition for hazardous trees, would work. Although I certainly defer to the fire chief and general manager.
Yeah. Thank you. That's all I have.
So for my understanding, where the hazardous trees would come in, it clearly states in the first sentence there, in the context of fire hazard fuel reduction. So I'd be fine with it to address the entire paragraph. But again,
wait, fine. Yeah. So that will be hazardous trees at the beginning of that paragraph, and otherwise the language stays the same.
So
Right.
rather than just trees, it says hazardous trees.
Hazardous trees in the yeah.
And then leave hazard in there, the second
yeah.
part.
So the paragraph would read hazardous trees in parentheses, hazardous trees in the context of fire hazard fuel reduction refer to any wood perennial plants with a single trunk or multiple stems can potentially contribute to the fire risk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Director Farmer.
Yes, thank you. And then in this discussion, it reminds me of a headline in the Cambrian, our deceased Cambrian newspaper, an article about maybe 25 years, 30 years ago. And the headline, big letters, dangerous trees. And there was this tree right next to a house. Well, I'm wondering, what was dangerous? The tree or the location of the house built right next to the tree? You know what I mean? So I'm wondering, what's the hazard in the sense, if you understand what I'm saying? People have to be responsible for where they're building, what they're planting and that type of thing, which allows for this definition. Does what I'm saying make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're correct. If we look at the Cambria, community in its entirety, we can probably make that same argument. This entire area, bluntly speaking, we weren't supposed to be in this area. Like humans weren't supposed to be here in the beginning of the world, right? So if we're trying to, blur that line of maintaining a healthy forest and then also living within a healthy forest, we absolutely have to take that accountability and responsibility when we're addressing public safety and forest health. Hopefully that made any sense.
Yes, Director Gray.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yes, Director, Vice President Thomas.
Thank you, President Scott. Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around. I guess the sheet of paper that was on our table under this is the recommended changes from legal counsel that we've.
Yeah, I
that's
didn't
what
know
this-
that either, but now I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's hard to give reflective thought about those changes. Um, uh, the two questions that I had to bring up, the the first is I've heard a number of comments. I may have raised the issue, but I've heard it from public comments in both this context and the Fire Protection Committee. Um, um, Basically, the the notice that goes out with the weed abatement notice has this list, and it's very clear and specific. Those elements aren't in this ordinance. But as I read the ordinance more deeply, it discusses the definitions of California Fire Code sections 4906 and 4907. And I haven't heard it stated. I'm trying to figure out is the reason for not having that specificity in here, is it because you've referenced those, 4906 and 4907, and therefore all that applies, and you don't want to muddy the water by trying to restate that? Is that the point?
Absolutely. We don't want to duplicate the code just for the sake of keeping it simple, clarify. If you have the desire to look those codes up, they're absolutely available. The fire, we took that language from the fire code itself. So they do the same thing in the fire code under chapters 4906 and 4907. Sections, rather, they reference the public resource code 4291, which is the defensible space. So they're already kind of trying not to duplicate codes and references as well. So we just kind of did the same thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I hadn't heard that answer definitively. So that's a good answer, because then if 4906 and 4907 change, this is still valid, and we'll always keep up with that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as we continue to adopt the fire code in its entirety.
Thank you. That puts that issue to rest for me. Now, on page 126, I still don't understand the flow and logic. The 605.40, you got C, which says, here's the exceptions, exemptions. Great. A, B, C, can I go make sense? I get down to D, E, other lands having scenic values. Then the next sentence, abatement requires shall be in effect in waterways, yada, yada, yada. And then the next three, like 1, 2, and 3, it's like a non sequitur. I don't see how, as I'm reading one, I don't understand how it fits into that section.
I'm trying to follow you on this.
Where
Sorry.
the sentence, item 1, this exemption applies whether the land is held in fee title or any lesser interest. And that's a subset below where it says the abatement requirements shall be in effect in waterways where flood, yada, yada, yada. So how is item 1, 2, and 3 a subset of this waterways and flood preparation comment? That's where I just don't understand the intent on this page as written.
Yeah. I could help maybe clear that up. I think that was that paragraph, a short little paragraph, can be moved. I think it should probably be just at the bottom of that whole section, just before D, because it's kind of a footnote. It refers very specifically to waterways. And so it's kind of a general comment on the whole process of what's exempt, what isn't, but it's sort of an exception to the exceptions. I would put it right above section D at the end of that section. I think that would solve the problem.
Well, it is right above section.
No, it isn't.
No,
It isn't.
right here.
It's right at the bottom. Yeah. At the bottom of those three,
Put it down here.
yeah, those three, 1, 2, 3 there.
Okay.
You want to put it after that.
And does 1, 2, and 3 refer to other lands having scenic values?
I believe 1, 2, and 3 refer to all the exemptions to abatement requirements. Yeah.
Then it needs to say that.
So in that context, I can't keep up with it all, and it
Yeah.
feels like I need to see a clean copy.
Well, I have,
But
can I ask a question?
Of
I
course.
have, okay, I have just a couple questions. One is on page 125, where it says a definition of property owner. And it says property owners shall mean the legal owners of real property and any tenant, agent, or representative. So is that the legal owners of the property or and the people that are renting from them? So you're going to assess the costs to remove any hazardous stuff to both of those people?
No, just to the one that would factually be the representative under those circumstances. It could either be the owner, the legal owner, the tenant, an agent, or a representative in terms of who's responsible for abatement, who you'd cite.
Well, who is responsible?
Whoever be in possession of the property.
Okay, that's confusing to me. The second part is, I agree with the remove weeds. It sounds to me it needs to be like cut weeds, because remove means get them out of there. Yeah. The other thing is
We
that,
could change that to abate if you'd like,
Oh,
or
that'd
we can absolutely change it to,
Yeah,
if you wanted to
that'd
put
yeah. Yeah.
a height on there, we could do that as well. We could.
and then the other question I have is on page 126 where it says ABC, then E, other lands having scenic values. You know what? My yard is very scenic. So, I mean, what are you gonna do about that kind of stuff? I mean, where does it say scenic as defined by? Well,
It,
So
it says scenic as declared by the county, state, or federal government, because all of those are modified by that,
okay. Oh, okay, so A, B, C, D, and E all must be defined by
Right.
another entity. Okay,
by the county, state, or federal government.
okay. And then,
Well-
on page 126, almost the last sentence, it says notification shall be made to the fire chief and shall be under the sole discretion of the fire chief as to the applicability and authorization of exemption. Oh, is that gonna be a real heavy load?
Absolutely, but so I did submit a change to that went a little bit further as
Oh,
well, because
okay.
there were some, I don't know if it's in your copy or not, but I added the sentence that the fire chief shall utilize the appropriate and applicable entities to conclude their decision in such a way that will not create unreasonable delay. Because the question had been brought up that it shouldn't be my sole discretion, just me
Yeah.
alone, that we wanted to use the other entities and applicable entities to make
Yeah.
that decision, as long as it doesn't create undue delay in removing the hazard.
And
Or
that is
removing the
added to
hazard.
this version.
It is added?
It is, yeah.
Okay,
What
perfect.
version?
Well, the one that's in our agenda, the version of the agenda.
No? Oh, the
Yeah,
last
yeah.
one, okay. Okay, sorry.
And then another edit that I made, I did in my, and correct me if I'm wrong, so if it's still in there, the other lands having scenic value was removed.
Mhm.
I removed it when I
Oh, you
made the
did?
suggestions, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But at the same time, if it's left in there, I do want to reference on um,
Hmm.
item D there, that says in order to qualify for any of the foregoing exemptions, all of that's going to apply. So the other land having scenic value has to be proven again by the lot owner if it is something that would cause, that isn't identified as a fire, excuse me, as a fire hazard. There could be that could be used, but I also understand the reason for removing it as well.
So, I'm sure we have people online
Yeah.
that are gonna wanna, comment. I was just wondering if you had, read the comments from, Crosby Schwartz,
Hmm.
because he's probably gonna talk, but, he's given it to us in several forms already, and I really trust him. So, yeah, I'm just asking if you've looked at that and considered anything in there.
Yes, so I don't remember the comments in its entirety, but
Yeah.
part of it was, why aren't we including the weed abatement ordinance and the direct, and almost what Vice President Thomas had mentioned, with why aren't we referencing these
Yeah.
codes in this code?
Right.
If that's correct, I'll give the same answer, which is we're trying not to duplicate the ordinances. We have the ordinance for weed abatement for the unimproved and vacant lots, and then we want, this will be a completely separate ordinance. And we don't want to duplicate any of that information, just for the simplicity's sake and also confusion's sake as well.
Yes, Director Gray.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to, I had another question for Mr. Carmel, getting back to that um, uh, discussion about that abatement requirements shall be in effect in waterways sentence. What would you suggest doing with that? I would put it maybe the bottom of the page under D, but that has to be put somewhere because it does kind of break the pattern.
I agree. It doesn't flow. I think that would be satisfactory to just put it below D.
Below D, yeah, yeah, okay.
Below D?
Yeah, all the way
Okay.
down there, yeah.
Okay. Would it be a E?
No, I think it's
Maybe-
just a kind of a
Clarification.
clarification, yeah, I think,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Is that all of that is still under section C there?
yeah. Okay.
Yes, Director Farmer.
I just want to say with regard to other lands having scenic value, and what pops into my head, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder,
That's right.
so to speak. So what does have, I mean, all of Mother Earth has scenic value if you want to really get down to it, but that's just my humble opinion. Thank you.
So let's do public comment. Do we have anybody in-house that would like to public comment? Okay, online. Oh, sorry. Yes, Mr. Dudzik.
Dennis Stujic, Cambria resident. Thank you. This is really short.
Can
There it is,
you?
yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, Dennis Stujic, Cambria resident. Short comment. This is great. It's an excellent comprehensive look at the situation, and I think it's a balanced way to do it. I appreciate that other language is not included. If it's duplicative, that certainly makes sense. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Crosby.
online.
Yes, Crosby and Laura Swartz.
Okay. Mr. Schwartz or Ms. Schwartz?
So good afternoon, President Scott, members of the board and staff. This is Crosby Swords, Cambria. My comments on the agenda item before you today are pretty much the same as my comments at the February 20th Fire Prevention Committee meeting. The draft ordinance does not clearly specify guidelines for property owners and contractors to follow. The attached fire hazard fuel reduction program guidelines are much better, and they should be included in the new ordinance. For example, 6.05.40B requires the removal of any combustible, hazardous, or unsightly vegetation, whether living or dead. Does trimming weeds and annual grasses to 4 inches in height qualify as removal? Does removal cause any erosion problems? Should all poison oak, French broom, pampas grass, ciboda grass, and fireweed be removed? Can isolated specimens remain with greater than 10-foot separation and all dead material removed? Should downed trees beyond 30 feet from any structure 12 inches in diameter or greater remain on the parcel? Should combustible construction materials and trash be removed from the property? The referenced paragraphs of the fire code actually do not provide specific information and guidelines about what to do. I tried following through those, and the fire code just leads you on to 8 additional state codes And none of it is really very clear in terms of what a property owner or a contractor needs to know. They're just not. And in my opinion, approval of the draft ordinance with unclear requirements and guidelines will create confusion and make enforcement very difficult. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Anybody else online?
Yes, Christina Galloway.
Okay. Miss Galloway?
Hi, Christina Galloway, Cambria. Thank you, Crosby, for sharing. And I hear everybody's concerns. I guess, you know, being on the NCAC, I deal with planning and building at the county a lot. And sorry, I'm walking. So a bit winded, in our local coastal program. And, you know, those are the ordinances that kind of define land use in Cambria and San Simeon. And there's so much of that is open to some form of interpretation. Like it's literally impossible to get an ordinance down to a point where there's no question. So, you know, I hear what people are saying, and maybe there's some form of Cambria specific, you know, guidelines that could be developed that really help homeowners and renters kind of figure out like what's best for them and their property. But in terms of like actually getting something done, this just seems like something important to get done. And then maybe, you know, it would be wise to kind of get more specific after that. Just because it would literally be impossible to, if we were doing what we're doing with this fire ordinance right now or with the weed abatement ordinance right now to any of our local coastal ordinances, like they wouldn't exist. So I don't know, that's just kind of some food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you. No more? Yes, Director Gray.
Thank you. I don't know, I can attempt to make a motion incorporating the changes we've identified, if you're ready for that.
I am.
It's lengthy, but everything I think is.
Are you ready for that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I don't know. I think Ms. Galloway, I think, makes a good point about the perfect being the enemy of the good in these cases. You can't get every little tweak done. And the point of the ordinance is to give us enforcement powers over developed properties that are similar to the enforcement powers we have over undeveloped properties. And we want to get this thing in place and before the public. And I'll say a little bit about the public part of it later, but we want to get that in place before the upcoming weed abatement cycle starts. And that's why I think there's some urgency to getting this on the books. But I'll put this out there as a motion. So then people can, you know, go vote it up or down. So I move that we approve ordinance 01.2025, adding chapter 6.05 to the Cambria Community Services District Municipal Code regarding weed abatement standards with the following changes to the version that's in today's agenda. Starting with, I have one actually that I found. It's just a terminology question. On page 123, in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 recital, which starts, whereas the district is located in a wildland suburban interface, the correct term is wildland urban interface. That's simply a terminology correction. The next change is one taken from Mr. Carmel's list in section 6.05.010. It is adding his paragraph that he says restoring to as the third paragraph of that section under purpose and findings. The next change is in the definitions under the paragraph starting trees, change trees in quotes to hazardous trees in quotes, otherwise keeping the definition the same. And then in section 6.05.40 under section B, change remove to abate at the suggestion of the fire chief. And I would capitalize H on hazardous trees, make sure we're referring back to the definition. And then and C right under that, this is a change that was offered by Mr. Carmel, amend that starting paragraph to start to read, the following exemptions to the requirements of the section shall apply, and any land beyond 50 feet from improved streets which has been acquired or managed for one or more of the following purposes as declared by the county, state, or federal government. That's the revised version. And then on page 126, or under section, I believe it's still under section C, the paragraph starting abatement requirements shall be in effect in waterways, et cetera, be relocated under paragraph D on that page. Finally, on section 6.05.050, there is a revised version of that first paragraph that Mr. Carmel offered, which gets rid of some of the parenthetical language. I could read it, but it's on your sheet here. It's weeds, grass, and combustible vegetation growing or accumulating upon private property within the district, which do or will, when dry, create a fire hazard, and which by virtue thereof can constitute a danger to the property and to neighboring property or the health and welfare of residents of the property and the people residing in the vicinity are hereby declared to constitute a public nuisance. Those are my changes.
Director Gray, Mr. Carmel's version also suggested correcting section number heading from 6.05.40 to 6.05.040.
Yes, that I'll also include in the motion. Thank you.
Could I ask a question before we get a second? So if we find that this isn't working, we can edit ordinances through this process.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, do we have a second?
Not sure that's correct. I
That
did
is-
want to add one thing, Director Gray, could we make that motion by title only and waive further reading?
Yes, thank you for adding that. And then motion is made by title only and waiving further reading.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I make one quick observation?
Sure.
Excuse me. First, I want to congratulate Director Gray for having all this together, because that's way beyond anything that I could do with that's not important. But I just wanted to mention one thing. We're talking about the hazardous trees, and he said, and just leave the rest of it. It's supposed to read, I believe, quote, hazardous trees, unquote, in the context of fuel reduction and remove fire hazard. That was that.
No,
That was.
I think we left fire hazard.
I think we left that in, yeah.
Yeah, we did.
We left fire hazard.
I think we keep that language just as it is, I think.
It tells the difference between the tree being a fire hazard or the house.
Okay, whatever.
We have a second? Yeah.
All right, no problem.
Yeah, we had a second.
Okay, good.
Director Dean seconded. Are you finished, sir?
Apparently.
Okay, let's have a vote.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Director Dean?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Vice President Thomas?
I'm voting no, and only because I think I counted 8 revisions that are substantive, and it's just hard to get the arms around what we're approving.
President Scott?
I have some of those same feelings, but I'm going to vote yay.
I will have a version to you guys tonight in red line because I do have to post this
I
in,
want you to
in the
stay until
paper.
midnight to do that. So
What was that?
Yeah.
I said, I want you to stay till midnight so that
Yeah.
you do that.
Will
tonight.
do. I'm heading back to the office after this meeting because I do want to get these changes in tonight to Tim for one final review and then to the Tribune so they can post it.
Okay.
Excellent. So I don't want to take up much more time, but I think at future agenda items, I'll bring this up. It's my intent and at the next fire committee meeting to direct an ad hoc to come up with the public materials, incorporating these these regulations, which are quite lengthy, into some kind of readable document. So it'll go along with the document people get for the weed abatement. In other words, we're basically incorporating this into the program. We're going to be working on that at the committees. I mean, at the board's recommendation to produce some documents for the public that will explain someone what they have to do in some, with some brevity.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. What I'd like to do is I would like for the general manager to give his report and then excuse him because he's real sick. I touched his back and he has a fever, so he's spreading germs all.
I definitely am doing that. My apologies, everybody.
Mhm.
I tried to bear through it,
Yeah.
but
It's,
Do we
Uh,
need him to be here for agenda item 6K on the lease?
I believe President Scott and I decided perhaps through telecommunications that we're gonna move that item up.
To move it
Uh,
right now? Yeah.
to now,
Yeah.
or since Mr. Lynn is here, or after
Yeah.
the GM report, but it would be
Okay.
appropriate to.
Yeah, let's,
Maybe 6K now?
uh-huh.
Do 6K now and then.
Okay, let's do
Yeah, then go for that.
6K.
Okay.
And then
All
take a 5-minute break.
And then, oh, no, we have to let him go. Yeah, okay.
'Cause, Gon
Let's
is here.
do agenda item 6K.
Agenda item 6K, discussion and consideration of adoption of a resolution 192025 approving a second amendment to lease agreement with Lynn Investments LLC and adoption of resolution 202025 amending the fiscal year 2024-2025 final budget. Now, obviously, this is awkward for staff to come back after touting cost savings and then coming back and asking to take over the whole floor. But this was a consequence of some of our strategic planning when we were talking about the movement of facilities and resources. And unfortunately, Mr. Aguirre is out today and tomorrow as well. So he can't be here, but I do have some videos of the facility. But essentially, there's a financial liability with moving those offices, or moving that building, which contains offices for Mr. Aguirre and his staff. And so I consulted with some of my managers to include Mr. Aguirre, Mr. Green, and Mr. Lynn was actually showing one of the office spaces and made me nervous. And so, because we kind of hoped maybe it would stay vacant for a little while so we could work out some finances and look at this long range. Because I really do want to bring all my management staff under one roof and break down some of those silos. Because as well as we do communicate, water and wastewater on an island, Mr. Geary's on an island, Chief is on an island, and then I just have my admin staff. So when I was looking at the relocation of the facilities and resources building to include offices, that's usually some type of a modular building. And Mr. Green will speak to it in a little bit, but that's anywhere between $100 to $200 a square foot to include space to store all the equipment and office space, permitting, grading. And that's a significant amount, especially given this economy. And I don't know when I'll need to do that based on weather and flooding. Like it could happen any day. That roof at the facilities and resources building has been repaired multiple times just with duct tape and bubble gum to keep them from getting rained on. Mr. Geary did a good job from the last storm, putting up, drywall and plaster and putting things on rolling carts. But ultimately, it's a planned emergency with that facility. It's going to happen. And if it does happen, I don't know where to put Mr. Aguirre and his crew. I really don't. I mean, sure, some of the equipment can stay down there after it dries out. We can bring them back. Even if there's a couple holes in the roof, that equipment could stay in there and stay relatively dry. But for him and his crew in the offices, it's a liability long range. Now, with the increase in rent of about $2,200, I believe that buys us time as staff to look long range at what we're going to do with his building. Maybe maybe we purchase a building ourselves and bring everybody in. Maybe that modular that needs to be created can house everybody in the district, and we could stop paying rent. No offense, Mr. Lynn.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is think long range, and it's hard to think long range when we don't know where obviously we looked at the general fund and the F&R fund. It's just not there. It'll never be there. It will automatically be some type of a budget adjustment to make this happen. So what I believe this does is it does increase our overall rent back above what we were paying before, but also gives us some time on not having to address that facilities and resources building anytime soon. If we don't do it, we will be dealing with that building sometime in the near future. I just don't know when. But it will happen because there's, you know, unfortunately, Mr. Geary's not here, but there's only so many more patches we can put on that building. And I'll share my screen. And I don't have great video, but I'll get to show everybody my email. So here are some leaking underneath the building itself. If you can see up on the top, it's not great footage, but there's some patchwork that's been done there. We haven't got the outside of the building, but there is a lot of rust to the outside of the building. Leakage right here underneath the building, which eventually will attack these beams. More patching right there. More leakage here, which in theory, you've got a bunch of electrical cords running around a shop. That's not ideal. So that's our thought. With the office building, Mrs. Dodson was kind enough to do a tour this morning to go over our existing office space. So to the left is Miss Dodson, the middle Denise, excuse me, Mrs. Fritz, and myself. Where that wall is right there is where our offices basically end. This would be a common space for facilities and resources staff. This would be another office for Mr. Geary, Mr. Reaper, Mr. Green. I think Mr. Green liked this one because that had a little more sunlight. To the left there, Ms. Dodson will get that to a sec. Here's another main office, which will allow another personnel to come in there and set up shop under one roof. And as we head across the hall, this will be a little better for our conference area and break room. So we'll be able to have a conference area and a break room, which we really don't have now. And as we make a right turn heading back, Mrs. Dodson will make a right turn into this common area. And this is a lot of desktop space that you can put laptops and desktops, and, you know, facilities and resources staff aren't there a ton, but it does give them a nice dry spot to work. And I think getting ahead of what I think is going to be a problem with the facilities and resources department, bringing all staff in, most all staff in under one roof, is going to be a benefit to the organization long range. And again, we don't know when that building's really going to be permanently unlivable, so to speak, or uninhabitable. And with that, I'll turn it over to the board.
So, so it's $2,300 extra, and it's a 10-year lease. So, with increases, cost of living or whatever, yeah, it's
There's
about
a 3% increase each year,
about
President Scott.
$300,000 extra over the next 10 years.
So that's the bonus time.
Yeah.
I don't know if we would stay that for 10 years. I mean,
Right.
Obviously, there's been leases that have been broke.
Yeah.
So if we need to shorten our lease, for whatever reason, there are ways in the lease to break the lease and decide we're going to buy a building. I don't see that on the horizon.
Yeah.
Soon,
Yeah.
but it does allow us just to buy time to get a long range plan solution for that.
So what, I asked you to bring some information about how much money it might cost to relocate the current FNR, yeah. Oh. Okay.
The office would obviously have to be larger.
Right.
So that's what we.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, I jumped right in there.
Okay.
Director Farmer.
Oh, you know, I didn't mean to have my light on, but since it is on, let me ask you with regard to FNR. So they moved their headquarters from over there on Rodeo grounds to Main Street. Their equipment obviously still stays where it is, right? Is there any consideration of anything changing there in the near future?
Say that one more time, Director Farmer.
Where all their equipment is over on Rodeo grounds, is there any consideration of about changing that in the near future?
There could be potential to that if the building is no longer suitable for even the equipment being housed there.
Right.
We could look at like Conex containers and lean-tos that would just be big enough for storage there and keep the equipment dry. But they have their own vehicles, and if they need to come by the district office, which is relatively close to rodeo grounds, they can come in, check in, and they can go have access to their equipment pretty easily.
Thanks.
Yes, yes, Director
Yeah,
Gray.
thank you, President Scott. Are we comfortable with there being enough parking for the added number of staff people? And
I am. I mean, Mrs. Dodson, myself, and Miss Fritz, we don't even park in the back parking lot. We just park on the street and walk across the street. Oh, and Mr. Steck. I don't think we've ever parked down below, and we get there early enough in the morning. We park on the street and we walk across the street. I'm in my office. There's not one time I've ever had to drive around the block for parking. We do have those medical stalls, office stalls, and there's plenty of those given how many businesses or there's only one doctor's office there and it's not open every single day. There's the dentist's office and that's open, but we haven't had any issues with parking. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to speak for you guys, but
I have,
You're right.
they're identified as medical parking, and are we able to park in those or not?
we are. At one point, we talked about doing a / CCSD, but we just haven't got to it yet.
Yeah, we should.
For sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
Director, oh,
Director Tom,
yes.
Vice President.
Vice President Thomas.
Well, thank you, President Scott and Director Gray. Yeah, and I thought through the pros and cons of this, and yes, I've seen the facility and the needs, and think through the pros and cons and the benefit of synergy of connectivity between the department managers that the general manager is describing. I mean, that's substantial and it's not quantifiable. It's one of those intangibles that can yield great benefits. When you share a coffee pot, ideas emerge. So that's substantive. And two, right, at some point, we aspire to move that facility and the water, the water department facilities that are there. If you have to move that in combination with offices, that's a scope of work that's much larger than if you have to move it with a warehouse type facility. So yeah, it's reasonable for the general manager to say, no, we don't have that estimate. That's a tough estimate to make, but we know, and is it half? I mean, it would be substantially less expensive to do that. So those are benefits. The cons, well, there might be some less connectivity between the department managers if they're at the admin building than currently. But they are so connected, and I wouldn't see any concern with Mr. Aguirre not being connected with his staff or Mr. Green not being connected with his staff. So that is very minor. And just like Mrs. Fritz found an opportunity to jump on a consultant that could enable us to have better financial outcomes, better returns on our investment. What a benefit that's been. I mean, here you have an opportunity, and it won't be long before Mr. Lynn fills that space. That's a highly desirable space. So yeah, the opportunity is there. So I see why we want to jump on it.
So, Mr. Lynn, would you like to speak to us?
Well, hello, I'm John Lynn, building owner. I did want to address any concerns that any of you had about this. And that was the main reason for my being here. But additionally, since the issue of parking, for example, has come up and what there is there, I just want to clarify, there are 3 separate parking lots behind that building, all of which belong to the property. And what we did was we labeled those that were closest to the building as medical. And the reason we did that was because many of those people who need to park there and access doctor or dentists, perhaps are elderly and infirm or infirm. Plus, there are 2 handicap spaces under the building to get closer access. But I want to point out that there are those other 2 parking lots beyond that space, which I have always encouraged tenants to have their employees park out there so that you're using, those are our spaces. They're not for anyone else. So they do tend to fill up because other people will do it. But if we decide to use those spaces before those people are there, we're occupying them, period. And in fact, if they are occupying them and hurting our access, we go talk to them and tell them, no. So I just wanted to clarify that that is something that's available to all of the employees there. I would also point out that as a longtime citizen of town, I feel better that the CCSD has its administration downtown on Main Street and visibly right there in the community. And I think that that's a benefit for all of you, notwithstanding the benefits that you were just talking about the having everybody under one roof. I've gone through that with my business down in Tin City, and I've been splayed out all over the place. And I know how difficult communications internally can get when we aren't under one roof close by. So I think there are some benefits to you there that I hope that will accrue to you by virtue of having that space. And yes, I did have people that were interested in that space, and fortunately, Matt called me when he did because I was ready to show that space, and I thought, we better put the brakes on this other one because I wanted to give you preference.
I do have a question.
Certainly.
And I break the law. Don't tell anybody. That red curb that's right in front, is that a requirement for the medical building?
No.
Or can we paint it not red?
Actually, that was done through the CCSD, I believe, several years ago. There was a traffic group that was put together as part of the community, and I don't know if it was CCSD per se, but that was done under their direction. They felt that should be red so that cars wouldn't pull up there and park because of that angular nature of it in front. It impinges a little bit into the Main Street area, and that's why that was done.
Oh,
So
but I like it because when I pick up my stuff, it's nice to be there.
I think it's still, I've done it many, many times. In fact, I've parked up on the sidewalk when I've been there working on the building.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anyone else? You have a question? I'll
No.
answer you.
Okay. Anybody online?
No.
Anybody in house? Hey,
I just had a couple more questions. I think one is a question for Mr. McElhenney, one for Mr. Carmel. Mr. McElhenney, I think we've discussed this a little bit in the boardwalk, but and this follows up on Mr. Director Farmer's question about the equipment, all the stuff that's stored there now. If you had to, if that building really had to be, scrapped and you had to do something for the equipment there, there's the solution would be something much cheaper than recreating the building because you don't have to have the toilets and the plumbing and all that sort of stuff. Like, give us some idea, like a prefab shed or something like that could be done, and how much that would cost.
Speaking of Mr. Geary, we talked about 2 Connex boxes with the lean-to that had some overarching cover. I mean, he thought we could get it done for about 6,000 a piece for each Connex, maybe another 12 to 14 for all the secondary stuff. So, maybe 25 or 30.
Yeah,
We'd get all the equipment housed and protected.
Yeah, inside. So but it's a good thing to bear in mind in that we can provide for the equipment very cheaply. It's the people there that we have to, that cost, are expensive to house and so forth. Now, question for Mr. Carmel on a standard commercial lease. We talked about this being, sort of a way station for us, perhaps on the way to something else. It is a 10-year lease, and we might decide in 2 or 3 years that we do have another plan that we want to make more permanent. Just how does a lease work in the ability of the parties to, alter it or end it as individuals and together?
Normally, there would have to be an amendment, a meeting of the minds of the landlord and the tenant to effectuate that kind of a change.
Yeah. So we're basically the two, landlord and tenant, we and the landlord and Mr. Lynn have to have some agreement to do that at some point.
That's
If we
correct.
want to do it, yeah.
In terms of your comfort level, I would just go ahead and point out that you might remember there was a tenant there, First California Physician Partners, and I let them out of that lease. There was one point in time when they would be allowed to leave that lease. It was written into the lease at the 5-year point, and they passed that without enacting it. And according to the terms of the lease. And so when they finally did come to me and say that they wanted out, I let them out without any kind of punishment. But the point that I'm getting at is that can still be done. I did that because it has always been my goal to bring more medical services to Cambria. And actually, we are doing that because Dr. Griffith upstairs has taken the eastern portion of the building now at the first floor level, in addition to his upstairs offices. And so he expanded into part of that space, and we're giving more medical services to the community by virtue of doing that. If in the future, the CCSD decides that you don't want to be there anymore, I would roll right back into the idea of getting even more medical services for the people in Cambria. I'm not saying I would enjoy going through all of that again, but that would be something to be decided at that point.
Thank you.
Okay. Public comment?
No.
Okay, not in house. All right. So do we have a motion? Yes, Director Gray.
Yes, please. Thank you, President Scott. I move that we adopt resolution 192025, approving a second amendment to lease agreement with Lynn Investments LLC and adoption of resolution 2025, amending the fiscal year 2024-2025 final budget.
I don't want to make one comment. I was just the thing I'm thinking about the most with regard to this is David, because I think right now with the way things have been for him, losing staff, being overwhelmed by various projects, he kind of, I think at times feels alone in many ways. And something that Vice President Thomas said earlier about ideas and energies that get generated around the water cooler. I think just David being in that location will be of real benefit to him and his own, how could you say it, emotional nourishment, if I can use any other term. So there you
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Yeah.
Oh,
I stated I would second, but at the same time, Dr. Farmer was commenting.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, Director Gray.
Aye.
Vice President Thomas.
Aye.
Director Dean.
Aye.
Director Farmer.
go. Aye.
President Scott.
Aye. Okay, so yes, thank you so much, Mr. Lynn.
Thanks, John.
Let's go ahead and do 7A now.
Thank you, President Scott.
You're welcome.
Agenda item 7A, General Manager Report. As most of us know, we did successfully install the East Ranch restroom. Credit to all of our CCSD staff and specifically some of our utility staff that was pivotal in the RFP process. in the permitting process. I mean, there's a lot of hours that go into even a simple restroom installation. Contractors aren't always easy to work with. So there's a lot of things that go on underneath the surface that cause our utility staff some strife working with contractors. So Mr. Green did a phenomenal job, Mr. Reaper, just balancing all of that activity underneath the water, you know, acting like a duck above water, nice and calm, but just panicking below, you know, feet moving. So credit to them. We're still waiting for some of the electrical to get installed. I know there's been some questions about dark sky compliance. It will be dark sky compliant. We're going to have a timer on it. But that will be coming soon, and we won't flip the switch on the electricity until all the lining is the way it is. Okay. We did submit our information hold letter number 2 for the water reclamation facility. We did hear back from Mr. Jeremy Freund, who passed it off initially to Cindy Chambers, who now has put on another project. So now it's going back to Mr. Freund. But that's good for us. He's familiar with the project. So they received it. As everybody knows, it's pretty voluminous. So they've requested an additional 30 days. So they want a total of 60 days to review it. So we really won't have any movement on that for a while, but I'll keep everybody up to date. Sorry, give me one second. And I think that's basically all I have. The rest is public records requests and things of that nature. I do have Mr. Aguirre's facilities and resources report. If you allow me 1 second to pull that up. They have obviously been very busy removing trees from the Fiscalini Ranch in the fire break zone. They've been patrolling some of the unhoused areas, gearing up for weed abatement season. They've been looking at all the different fire breaks around the ranch. They've removed the damaged crossing at Ridge Trail and have plans to rebuild it at a later date. Obviously, the new restroom is installed. The streetlights, we do have a quote for that. It's on the agenda. So we weren't able to get a quote for the interior of the Vets Hall, but our hope is at some point to come back with another budget adjustment to address these lights to be more energy efficient, some LEDs, things of that nature. But we will have these street lights that have been out, and I think there's upwards of 13, and we'll get those taken care of if the budget adjustment passes, because that's currently kind of a safety issue on Main Street. Mr. Mora, I think started today. Mr. Mora started today with the water department, and he's excited, and we're excited for him. We do have a current application open for a maintenance technician, and we're hoping to fill that at some point in the near future. And with that, I'll turn it over to the board for any questions.
Questions? Yeah, I do have public comment on the general manager's report. Ms. Heinrichs? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Christine Heinrichs in Cambria. I was wondering, I spent a lot of time looking at the district's website, looking for various documents, and the website it's not easily navigable. It's extremely difficult to find documents. And I was wondering if that was on the district's plans to update that website. There are several companies that produce website formats specifically for small governments and local agencies. And it seems like that's an area that could stand some improvement. Thank you.
Thank you. When was it updated?
Many years ago, probably 5, 6 years ago.
Okay.
But we do have a website feedback survey form that was produced in 2021, and the public's welcome to submit feedback via that page.
Okay, thank you. Right. Any other public comment online?
No.
Okay. Nothing else in? Right. So I think we should go back to yeah, 6E. Yes, Matt is gonna be leaving. And you better
Mrs.
go,
Dodson is now acting GM. She
Okay.
didn't know it until now.
and you need to go home and go to bed. And in the meantime, let's take a 5-minute break. We will be back at 3:07. No, I'm happy about it. I know. It's a very long day.
We, nothing we have remaining is as challenging as what we complete
Nope.
by 2 orders of magnitude.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I don't know. He was outside on the phone. That's why I'm sitting. There he is. It's okay. Yep. Okay, no, that's okay. Okay, let's go to agenda item 6E. This is discussion and consideration to adopt the district strategic plan update. And I'm sure all of you have studied it word for word. So I'm not going to go over any of it, but I'm open for comments. I have a couple, but my first comment is on page 235, where it has the core values. I noticed that we put preparedness in the middle. So I don't think we should have a long discussion about priorities, but at least let's put it alphabetically. What do you think? Because alphabetically, because if it's not in some order, people are going to think, I think. So I'd like to do it alphabetically.
So basically, the only change you would want is just moving stewardship up after safety. Because technically it's all alphabetically except for
Yes.
that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. And then the only other thing that I had as far as format was on well, no, two more things. On the very last, oops, no, on page 242, where it says remodeling. I think just put remodel, which is not a really good action anyway, but page 242. It's at the very last, it's the very last action. Yeah. And on page 241, the last two actions on that page, those two actions are kind of strange. Explore alternatives to the current plans for the skate park and explore alternatives to the current plan with the board. I mean, I think when we come to the board with something, that doesn't have to be an action.
The second one of those then,
Yeah,
because I mean, the exploring alternatives
Yeah.
was, I mean, we're
yeah,
probably done with that, but
Yeah.
yeah, I would just, that explore alternatives to the current plan with the board. Yeah,
yeah, just get rid of that.
Is that what just happened?
Yeah,
it kind of is just what happened, but
And I was
you wanna-
surprised that the target date was 2.5 years, 3.5 years from now.
Well, that, I don't know exactly what that, I think that means that that's the completion date of the skate park,
yeah.
of the actual project, I think, supposedly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But,
So, yeah.
And you guys are gonna talk to each other about what names to put in there and that kind of thing? the staff?
Yes, we did meet after the strategic plan meeting and we did our best to assign the WHO responsibility party to staff. But obviously we will have an updated version to you in September
Yeah.
with updated names.
Yeah, we don't need it before then, right? Okay. So I'm open for any other comments from people.
See anything else? Fine.
You're fine? Yes, Mr. Farmer?
I'm not fine, but I'm okay with this. Thank you.
How about you, Vice President Thomas?
Yeah, thank you, President Scott, and um, give me a moment. On let's see, 238. I mean, near the bottom, submit the addendum to the S.
238?
Oh, I'm sorry, 238. Yes. Submit the addendum to the SEIR and additional scope. It's my comment. Oh, my comment was, I think it was added on March 3rd. In other words, last week.
Okay,
It says added a plan in 2022.
okay.
Isn't that one we added last week?
Yeah.
If I, page 240. Page 240 near the top. As we revise the engage all county agencies, that first line is execute the plans. And I just made a note, what do we mean by execute the plans? Because, it says we're going to engage all the agencies, yada, yada, to, update these plans and execute the plans, I think is what the chief would do when one of those emergencies would occur. I mean, I'm trying to figure out what execute the plans means in this context, and we might want to be more granular.
Yeah,
And
Chief.
then I got one more.
So what would you recommend?
I'm just trying to understand the context. So,
Oh.
my question is, what exactly do we mean by execute the plans?
There you go.
Yeah, so I had the exact same question actually. So because there was a bunch of edits that as I was going through it, I don't have the current one that you guys have in front of you. But I did need to make some adjustments to it if possible. That was one of them. The execute the plans. Okay, perfect. So let's see. Okay. Oh, good. A lot of the edits that I wanted to recommend were there. I wanted to start with, so they execute the plans. I was a little, during the strategic plan meeting, confused by that language as well, because it seemed to me, I had mentioned during that time that we wanted to put in something about the funding of those plans and the budgetary process, but I think that all went under finance, if I remember correctly. And then, yeah, so either removing that or adjusting that to include financing or something along those lines would be appropriate in my eyes. But again, the execute the plans.
So what I'm hearing is
adjusted.
put whatever resources and systems in place so that you're ready to execute those plans at the moment's notice. Is that the philosophy?
So a supporting action for after engaging all of the or to engage all of the county agencies would be essentially researching what it's going to take or investigating what it would take to create and implement those plans. Something along those lines is what I'd recommend.
How about the word implement?
Or implementing.
Implement is supposed to execute.
But there is going to have to be some sort of
Resource.
Yep.
Resource determination.
Right.
Yeah. but implement includes that.
Right.
Well, it's the next action is that identify potential fiscal impact and funding resources of plan development. So maybe you just need to just change the order of those two and put implement instead of execute.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so change the order. I don't know if you, are you okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Change
I
order.
can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't need to do it right now.
Yeah.
Just
The other edit that I had to that topic was under the objective where it says emergency operations, I misspoke. So that should be department operations. We already have an emergency operations plan that we follow through the county. So
where is this? What page?
this is under the it's under the objective, engage all county agencies to include CAL FIRE. And then as it goes down, it
Very
says,
fine.
Department operate.
yep,
Department operate.
instead of emergency operations, it would be department operations. So, or agency operations, if you will. Again, the emergency operations plan, just the title is a county plan that we're already following. So again, I misspoke when we were doing that.
Yeah.
That just needs to be department operations.
One more question.
Sure.
Now, on the same page, halfway down, under identify training resources, the next line was present a report to the board of directors. And I think someone said at the strategic planning session, I don't remember it's not just presenting to the board, it's what's that next action? I mean, is that what you want the supporting action to be, or is there something more granular?
I absolutely agree. And I think there was mentioned multiple times that we don't want to do that. We don't want to just report to the board.
Right.
So how would you
so-
reword that?
Yeah, so we could change that to, let's see. Identifying, okay. I mean, it would almost be the same as under, it would be identifying potential fiscal impact and finding sources of needed to meet state and federal mandates for
Okay.
emergency personnel.
Do we have any in-house public comment? Do we have any online public comment? No. So, this was a consideration, so we have a restricted office. I will fill the office, with the amendments as noted.
Second.
Director Dean. Aye. Director Gray.
Aye.
Director Farmer.
Aye.
Vice President Thomas.
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye. Section 6F, discussion and consideration of annual review of the affordable housing unit allocation. I did have a form for 6F, but she's no longer here, so maybe she'll be on. Okay.
Excuse me, let me stop for 1 second. Sorry, my computer froze.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna have to pause for just a moment.
Okay. Pause this one.
Okay, sorry. All right, we're good.
Okay, thank you. So any discussion?
I guess if we have any questions, I can just read, I guess, is the second, this is as the backup presenter. I don't know if we need to just have him present it. I think we all know, it's
Yeah.
public, we want to know.
Is there something that you need from us with this?
Well, we just need basically to, that open for another year. We still haven't received funding to complete the construction on this. So we're just extending that, that will serve for another year. We're not asking for any more units. We would recommend that we keep the 46 units Because now, but so we're not asking for the use and water. There, staff, this is option bylaws.
No. Yes.
I move that we, board maintain current allocation of 56 units.
Okay. You mentioned extending the intent to serve the affordable housing project, but that's not in here.
I'm sorry, it's just there,
It's part of the number of units, correct?
Like, it is, there's some question about that. Also, to do with that, I think we've had a discussion before about whether these are additional. This is an old number. This goes back to Morgan essentially. So I think it's same.
Yeah.
We've reviewed it every year.
Yeah, I just wondered if you brought up. And this is just to, reaffirm the affordable housing resident application, not the self. Second motion. Okay. Sorry. Vice President Thomas.
Aye.
Director Dean. Aye. Director Gray.
Aye.
Director Farmer.
Aye.
President Scott. Aye. Okay, let's go to agenda item 6G. Discussion and consideration of adoption of resolution 16-2025 amending the board and standing committee bylaws. Discussion. Okay, yes, so it looks like the only changes we made is adding the spectrum for the fire protection committee and changing it.
Bylaw review policy states
Right.
that we could review them at the board's discretion. And that doesn't mean that we're going to say we are or we aren't going to review. It means we can review them as often as we need to.
Exactly.
Right.
And that was the premise, was we were doing it a bunch of times. Then there was one agenda item that said we had to do it right now because that's what we do. So we just want to make it make sense.
Yeah. If I may chime in about the Fire Protection Committee, we redrafted the responsibilities, powers and responsibilities to follow the format of the other committees. You can notice there's kind of a 5-point, I mean, we all are into assessing, collaborating with appropriate people and so forth and advising. I mean, it's not too different from what was a much longer list. It just compresses it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
Yeah. It's two.
Yeah. And then the other thing was, and I want to thank Mr. Carmel about something on page 256, because I had some committee members that were worried that if they missed regular committee meetings and special committee meetings, that, okay, what does that mean? So it's only regular committee meetings that will be counting against their attendance. So special meetings don't count. So thank you.
That's 24C.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
Ready for motion? We have public
I'm asking
comment.
for public
Yeah.
comment. Do we have any public
Too
comment?
much here.
No.
Anybody in house? Okay. Then we're ready.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah.
I move that the board adopt resolution 162025, amending the board and standing committee bylaws.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Director Gray.
Aye.
Director Dean.
Aye.
Director Farmer.
Aye.
Vice President Thomas.
Aye.
President Scott.
Hi. Okay. Let's go on to agenda item 6H. This is a discussion and consideration of adoption of resolution 18-2025, amending the fiscal year 2025 final budget to fund repairs for Main Street streetlights. discussion? Or is there anything more that you'd like to say? No?
Unfortunately, Matt or the general manager and Mr. Aguirre have been working on this one, so I'm not too familiar. So whatever's in the staff report is the information. Ms. Dodson might have more information.
Yes, I know we discussed this a little bit during agenda review on Tuesday, Tim. Do we want to see about possibly adding some additional funds to do some updating at the Vets Hall?
Of the lights?
I believe that was the intention.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at the time that Mr. Aguirre met with the vendor to receive the quote, he didn't have the time to actually come here to the Vets Hall to do some researching on this building. So he has since contacted the vendor, he has visited the site, and we'd like to add some additional funds into this resolution and exhibit to allow for upgrades here at the Vets Hall.
To the amount of?
I don't recall the amount. I didn't write it down during agenda review. I guess I should have been paying more attention, but Tim, do you recall?
No, I don't recall the specific number. I don't recall what I ate for dinner last night.
So sounds like we may have to continue this if we don't have
Yeah,
a number.
unless we
Yeah.
have the amount, we can't really put it.
Yeah.
Well, can we move forward with just this item and then bring back a
Oh,
different
yeah.
adjustment?
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
definitely.
That'd be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and I was wondering if you wanted to put, don't be me mad at me. If we wanted to put in the resolution following CCSD's lighting policy. I mean, we always follow policy, but I was wondering if that was anything that anybody had any.
I mean, I think it's automatic, but yeah.
Okay, let's
And
do.
Should be understood.
Where would you like that added?
Just whereas, I guess. Or let it be resolved that we definitely will do it under the new policy. However, Mr. Carmel thinks he wants to put it in there.
I think both of your ideas were adequate. If you want to be it further resolved, we'll comply with
Yeah.
our policy.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let's have,
Excuse me, President Scott.
sorry.
It's not to be sorry about. One thing that I'm curious about is that it isn't indicated here, and it might not even be important, but it isn't indicated here who's going to be doing this work. I mean, is it going to be staff such as Mr. Gary and his workers?
No.
Or, no, I know, I understand that. It's going to be a vendor. Should that be indicated here anyway, in any way, shape, or form?
I think, yeah, I think the $8,000 includes the guys putting them in.
Yeah, I think it falls under the purchasing or the purchasing contracting rules as a staff call essentially.
Yeah, yeah. Our job is to
Costs.
determine whether the funding's appropriate.
Cover the
Staff's job
costs
is to figure out how-
associated with repairing streetlights.
Okay, so we don't need to indicate that our staff isn't doing it, but we're actually contracting with someone to do it.
For
That's
8,000?
not important.
Yeah, for $8,000.
Okay, well, I understand that. All right.
Director Farmer, and I can confirm that it is an Electrocraft contractor that is doing the work.
Thank you.
Okay. And no public comment?
No.
Okay, none online. All right.
I can make a motion.
Yeah.
I move that we adopt Resolution 18-20205, amending the fiscal year 2024-2025 final budget to fund repairs for Main Street streetlights.
Oh, you know what? I'll make things different, and I'm going to second this time. Thank you.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Director Dean?
Aye.
Vice President Thomas?
Aye.
President Scott?
Aye. Okay, let's do 6I. And this is the discussion and consideration of the appointment of an ad hoc committee for the development of an evaluation plan for the CCSD owned undeveloped parcels.
Did you guys need some more background on this?
Yes, please.
Yes, Mrs. Dodson.
Okay. During the March 4th, 2025 adjourned special board meeting, the board identified the evaluation and potential divestiture of certain undeveloped CCSD-owned parcels as an objective within the Facilities and Resources core area. The formation of an ad hoc committee will provide a structured approach to evaluating CCSD's undeveloped parcels for potential divestiture. This effort aligns with the board's strategic objectives and will ensure a comprehensive and transparent review process. So we're asking that the board discuss and consider appointment of an ad hoc committee to work with staff for the development of an evaluation plan for CCSD-owned undeveloped parcels.
Do I have anyone that's interested?
I'll bring the O from pros.
Okay. Anyone else? There he goes.
Well, I'll say this, considering how much work all the other directors are doing, I'll do what I can to, how could we say it? Supplement the work that that Vice President Thomas is going to be doing
Thank you very
and be as supportive and knowledgeable as I possibly can.
So we have two people who are willing to do the ad hoc committee. That's Vice President Thomas and Director Farmer. So is there any public comment?
Yes, Jeff Wilson.
Oh, okay. Hi, Mr. Wilson.
Yes, thank you very much. The only thing I have to say is I feel like the language is a little unclear here. One, it simply uses undeveloped and an evaluation plan, and the other speaks specifically to divestiture. And I feel like the language should be clearer and, in my opinion, more broad about the evaluation plan and what it could include, such as alternative uses. It could include safety measures such as trees that pose a hazard. So, and then of course there are things like Fern Canyon, which have easements for water, and other parcels that have potential for different uses. That be incorporated into the evaluation plan and not just divestiture. So that's what I'd like to see and my suggestion. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. So are you clear with your assignment ad hoc committee?
yeah.
Well, I think in the strategic plan, we specifically said that the ad hoc committee was to evaluate the undeveloped parcels for potential divestiture to help relieve the financial burden off the district.
Yeah.
So maybe that needs to be included in the motion.
Yeah, I was going to say that too, because the purpose of this ad hoc committee is identifying the parcels that can be divested.
Yeah.
And focus on that.
Yeah.
And the parcels that aren't divested, but there's a question of managing them and so forth.
Yeah.
But this is specifically about
Yeah,
divestiture.
this is just about the,
Yeah.
shall we do, well, how about in the motion as specified in the strategic plan?
What's the exact wording? Is that good
It
enough?
states develop an evaluation plan for the divestiture of some
Yeah,
Yeah.
CCSD owned
Yeah.
undeveloped parcels.
yeah. So let's do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other public comment?
No.
Well, again, I look at the way the agenda item's phrased, development of an evaluation plan for CCSD owned undeveloped parcels. It doesn't actually say divestiture. So it might be better to
Add,
add
well,
lang-
yes, to specifically.
specifically about divestiture. Yeah.
Well, we do specifically related to the decision made with strategic planning.
Yeah.
Okay, before we make a motion, there's a late hand raised. And who is it?
Crosby and Laura Swartz.
Okay, Ms. Swartz or Mr. Schwartz.
Yes, it's Laura Swartz. I would like to, yes, good afternoon all. I would like to volunteer my services if the ad hoc committee needs any public support. I think my husband and I have a lot of background information going back at least 15 years or so. So I'd like to volunteer my support if they need any information. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know Director Dean has her light on, but I'd like to say, I just want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Swartz for their commitment to the natural environment here in our community. Thank you.
Yes, the light.
I was gonna make a motion if we're ready.
Sure.
I move that we appoint Vice President Michael Thomas and Director Harry Farmer to be an ad hoc committee for the development of an evaluation plan for the potential divestiture for CCSD-owned undeveloped parcels.
Excellent. I second it.
Okay.
Director Dean,
Aye.
Director Gray,
Aye.
Director Farmer,
Aye.
Vice President Thomas,
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, we're on 6J. This is discussion and consideration to submit a ballot for election for the LAFCO Special District member.
Hmm.
I'm asking for your vote.
You want a motion?
Yes, please. Oh, wait, is there any public
Do you have
comment?
any public comment on this?
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
Are we voting for both here,
Yeah.
the two different terms?
Mhm.
I
Okay,
think,
cool.
is
I think,
there?
yeah, there's two different seats,
Right.
basically,
Yeah,
two different.
I just want to make
positions.
sure.
Yes.
So, yeah, so it's the ballot that's there, so.
Mhm.
So does that require two separate motions? Okay. So maybe since we know who we're going to vote for the first term, maybe we should discuss who the board wants to vote for the term through December 2028.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, maybe discuss freely.
Sure.
Yeah, as I read through these, to me, Mr. Fardanish from Templeton, I mean, both seem eminently qualified. But I sense agenda from the first individual, but I sense service from Mr. Navid Farnesh.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I just want to say this. I know you didn't call on me, President Scott, but my concern is Mr. Fardinesh, with everything else that he's doing, how's he going to find the time to do this? But since he's doing everything else, it's probably not a problem for him. But this fellow is like, he's just really dedicated. And that's no reflection on Mr. Enns, but he just seems to bring a different energy.
The old saying, if you want something done, seek out a busy person.
And I just wanted to let you guys know that he is present on Zoom if you guys wanted to hear from him prior to your vote.
Wow.
Oh.
So let's do public comment and he can speak to us.
Okay, Naveed.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you, Board President Scott and board members for giving me this opportunity to speak with you today. I know you guys have had long meetings, so I'm sure I do appreciate this time. Obviously, my name is Naveed Fardanish, and I'm one of the two candidates that's running for the four-year term for LAFCO. And as you've seen on my resume and letter of interest, I'm on the Templeton Community Services District Board. I have been on there for 9 years. I just started my third term, and I'm currently the chair of the board for Templeton. And as you know, is very similar to your special district. We have jurisdiction over fire, parks, rec, solid waste, lighting, and drainage. So I'm very familiar with the challenges that each the special districts, just like ours, that face. So I think I could be a valuable asset to your board as well as to your residents. I have been on the Atascadero Basin GSA since its inception back in 2017 or 18. And previously, where I came from many years ago, I was on a planning commission for 6 years. My goal for LAFCO as your representative is to communicate better with districts about LAFCO and take your feedback to the commission and staff. I think that we just definitely need to have better communications. I know in Templeton that's been missing for us, so that's something that we're looking for. And I want to do that with all the special districts. I always go prepared to my meetings. I ask questions and I work collaboratively with others to come to the best outcome possible. And you can always, as your representative, you could count on me to be a strong advocate for you on LAFCO. And I know I heard a comment about how how busy I am and things like that. I am a retired dentist, so I have more flexibility with my time now. But I do appreciate your comments, and I hope I have your support for the 4-year term. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. But thank you.
Thank you so much. Do you have questions?
No, I was just gonna comment, we're looking at voting for a nurse and a
And a
dentist.
dentist, there you go.
I just I want to thank Mr., I believe he said Fardinesh.
Yeah.
I want to thank him for actually being present to provide some information to us with regard to who he is and his commitment.
Yeah.
And it's very heartwarming to have someone do that.
Is Mr. Enns here is he available? Just make sure
No.
he's not okay. Because he has come to these meetings before.
He was here recently.
Yeah, I was, remember.
Okay. So no other public comment?
No.
Okay.
You want a motion?
Yes, please.
I would be honored to consider the board submit a ballot for election for the LAFCO special district for our esteemed board president, Deborah Scott, for the LAFCO seat term through December 2026, and for David Ardonish from the Templeton Community Services District for the LAFCO seat term through December 2028.
And I'll second that.
Okay.
Director Dean?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Vice President Thomas?
Aye.
President Scott?
Aye. Okay. So we already had 7A and 7B. Ms. Finance Manager. This is agenda item 7C.
Thank you, President. Oh, thank you, President Scott. So I'm presenting item 7C, the Finance Manager's Report for March, and it shows the regular activity and the regular statistics that I report on with our bank balances. I would say that this month we're kicking off our new budget cycle. We're going to start working on CIP for next year. We're finishing up the audit, so we're really busy doing that. We're also working very closely. My billing manager is working really closely with the utility staff to get all the AMI meters up and running and in the system. And so staff has been really busy trying to get those off the ground. And I think it's going really well and going faster than expected. So that is very exciting. So that is what's going on in the finance department. And with that, I'm open for any questions.
Nope. Is there any public comment?
No.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Fritz. Right. Oh, Mr. Green, finally. you've
Good
been
afternoon.
Sitting here all the
This is like waiting for the Rolling Stones at the end of Woodstock, except for no one's here to see them.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Just wanted to make everyone laugh here. Anyways, thank you for letting me present my utilities report for February. I'll begin with wastewater as I usually do. You saw a picture in there, an illustration of some wastewater staff around a manhole that was there on Nottingham, and they were making some repairs. If you can look really closely at that picture, you can actually see
the intrusion of that water through that concrete stacked rings heading down that manhole right there. So that's some of the things that staff, wastewater staff is working on prior to and then after the fact during our storm events, like much like we're preparing for now. Also, big thanks to the collections guys who jetted 1.2 miles linearly and then camered another quarter-mile during the month. That was a rainy month and they were offset, had some plant issues and then obviously the storm issues there. So there's quite a bit of productivity out in the field there as well. I'll slide down to water where a great deal of the report touches on that moonstone repair, which was a 2-inch line, service line to a fire flow meter there for a hotel. So that took the better part of a week. We had to shut down half of Moonstone, working collaboratively with county roads to pothole and find the location of the leak, make a temporary repair, and then go back in the following day, open up, put a complete new service line in, and then restore the roads up to county encroachment standards there. So that was a big piece there. So you'll see some pavement work from Mission Paving as well as some work performed by Baker Construction, I believe, or I'm sorry, Kirk Construction that was out there helping us. Also during the month, I've touched on Mission Paving. So we went through and did our 26 repair patches or so throughout the community, bringing those up to county repair standards or county encroachment standards for public works. I think I just wanted to touch on a couple more things. It's been quite a long meeting, so I'll kind of cut this short and let you guys ask some questions. But let's see, we had goat maintenance out there at the impoundment basin. It's a little early for season, but we had that early rain and then the sun. So the weeds were knee high, so we brought in the goats and sheep early and they did a fantastic job out there again. AMI meter upgrade. I believe prior to this meeting, we're up to about 1,059 in quantity. So by today's end, we should have about 1,100 of the 3,500 meters in. So our contractor working on that piece is doing exceptionally well. He's kind of double. He's like twofold, 200% ahead of estimated time and delivery date. So appreciate you guys, voting on that months ago. It's just going swimmingly, and we are working collaboratively with finance right now. We're integrating those 1,100 meters that we have into Tyler, which will then be integrated into Badger. And this is a big lift, but I call it paying it forward. So that way in the future, this will be a hands-off. It'll be a click of a button and, 4,034 services. Building will be mailed off and, well, not mailed off, not quite that easy, but it will be submitted for payment. So that'll help us both in the field and administratively as well. Our AMP, so our adaptive management plan, we had our first day and night of our kind of the first part of our protocol study that was performed by Cleveland Biological. She is working collaboratively with, or Cleveland Biological is working collaboratively with Merck Biological to prepare our AMP and make that a little bit more robust as we know that was requested of us. Our San Simeon transmission line, that's our water and domestic water and wastewater effluent lines there. We reached out to our consultant to get an exploded view or expanded view, I'll say, I don't want to say exploded, of the Washburn day use area, which is going to be our installation pit there for state parks. We've submitted those plans and those kind of drawings over to state parks. And I like to say we've been working collaboratively with state parks and like to thank Dan Flatt for his quick and prompt response and thorough response to our submission. So that piece of that puzzle to that project is going very well. The other part is still being slowed by Caltrans's response to our right of entry requests and submissions that we've had. So it was kind of opposite of how we thought it would go here. Working very well with state parks, and Caltrans has kind of been the anchor in our boat going forward here, but we are still working forward to that. Stewart Street tank, yay. Just yesterday, we received our coastal development permit for the project. So it's official, we're permitted, authorized to construct. You'll see in April coming up, we'll have an RFP for construction that we'll introduce to you, as well as something new that I'll be bringing to R&I in April as well. We're looking at a construction manager for this project. This is something that none of us have performed in-house. This is the most key domestic storage area to our distribution system. And so we want to make sure that this piece is effectively executed, and it will be a year-long project. So I'll look forward to bringing that to R&I and to the board there in April as well. Let's see. Well, that's about all I have. I'll keep it kind of curt and open it up to questions from the board. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, Mr. Green. Thanks. So here under zero liquid discharge, down here under current status update, it says here, the CDP application was successfully submitted to SLO County Planning last August, and then staff and consultants are prepared for the March 7th, 2025 project hearing. So is there any update on that?
So the March 7th hearing, that's for the Stewart Street tanks, and that was the final
No, this
meeting.
is for
or
the
app-
zero. This is for zero liquid discharge.
No, the March 7th would have been, that was our final hearing. That was on consent agenda for the Board of Supervisors, and the consent agenda was approved, thereby our CDP was approved.
Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake. I read the wrong. Also, so since I made an error there, hopefully I'm not making another one. So this is on page 316 at the middle of the page regarding the San Simeon Wellfield transmission line project. District staff and consultants aim for a late summer or early fall date for the groundbreaking. So assuming that does take place, and you've probably given us a time frame after that, what are we looking at for completion? And there's, some folks in the community are concerned about, well, how much longer is this temporary line going to last? So if you could just give us some support with regard to the answers to those two concerns.
Sure, absolutely. We're still looking at a groundbreaking date of July or August. Obviously pending the ROE with Caltrans. That's really the only caveat here holding this project up is Caltrans, unfortunately. So still looking for groundbreaking around July or August. It is in its entirety, maybe 6 weeks. This is probably about a month project. So that would get us ahead of the wet season and the bird nesting season and all those critical elements there, because that is an enhanced nature preserve that is state parks, those wetlands right there. The existing pipe that's out there, that's 100-year pipe. We could probably leave that out there for another 30 years and it would be fine. The fact that it's above ground, it's vulnerable, and it's about 250 PSI going through that, and it is 80% of the community's domestic water is the true concern there. It's open to, unfortunately, I don't like to discuss this publicly, but it's open to vandalism. Just about anybody can walk up to that. So yeah, that's the concern there, why we need to get, it's not the duration or the duty cycle of the materials that were installed there. It's just that it's open and its ability to be vandalized or other issues is a true concern right there. So the longevity of the pipe, like I said, we could probably leave it out there another 30 years and not a darn thing would happen to it.
So perhaps I misunderstood you. Can I?
I just want to say, can we do 15 minutes more?
Oh yeah, my apologies.
Yeah, that's
That's
okay.
fine.
I just wanted to ask you, you just said something about, and maybe I misunderstood you, 6 weeks to dig up the ground and put the permanent pipe in there? Is that what you said?
The majority of it would be horizontally drilled. So you can do about 1,000 lineal feet in a day. The whole project is less than 3,000 lineal feet. If we were to go open cut trench along Highway 1 there, if Caltrans were to permit that, that might extend that another 2 weeks. So the whole project, even with open cut trench, would be about 8 weeks.
Oh, that's encouraging. I would have thought it would take much longer. So thank you so much.
No, and you can do more than 1,000 lineal feet of horizontal drilling in a day. That's about as much as you can get done during an 8-hour shift. So that's why I quote in those kind of hours.
Thank you.
Very good.
Yes, Director Dean.
I just want to know what he's feeding that lamb.
Oh,
In the picture,
yeah.
I think that was the sheepdog
Oh,
that
yeah,
came up to the side.
that's
Was that
that's
the
the
dog?
that's the
Was that-
doggy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's a
okay.
very big sheepdog.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he thought I had treats, but unfortunately I did not. So I only had a temporary best friend.
Okay.
Yes.
Any public comment?
No. Oh,
Okay.
late hand.
Okay.
Crosby and Laura Swartz.
Oh, great.
Very good.
Okay. The Schwartzes?
Good afternoon again. This is Crosby, Swartz, Cambria. Just a quick follow-up to what our utilities manager just stated. The problem with those pipelines is not the reliability of the temporary water main, but is the reliability of the existing effluent pipeline, which could fail at any time, and that would create a substantial problem for the district. So it's important to get this project done as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Do you want to respond?
Sure, I'd love to respond to that. So the domestic water line that was in there has had 2 failures in the last 20 years that we know of or that have been recorded. The wastewater, the treated wastewater line that is affluent right there has had 0 issues. It's a very low pressure line. It doesn't have the iron to ductile to AC pipe transitions like the domestic water line is, which is why I think we have never seen or we have not seen as of yet, any failures in that line.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Any other online comment?
No.
Anybody in-house? No? Great. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Green. Okay, so we have the board member committee and liaison reports, and I'm just going to ask if there are any questions or comments, or if any of those people who did those reports would like to make a comment or whatever.
I'll just make a comment on mine. On page 339, it says at the top, this is a finance standing committee meeting. Of course, it was fire protection. It was just some language that was inserted from an old document there.
Oh, say your template, huh?
Yeah, my template. Yeah. So that was that on page 339. That is the fire protection committee, and it has pretty good, hopefully, a pretty good discussion or record there of the discussion that we engaged in on the weed abatement ordinance.
Anybody else? No? No? Any public comment on any of these reports?
No.
Any in-house? Okay. All right. Well, let's go then to future agenda items. Do you want to let us know what is going on very quickly?
Yes, just give me a minute to bring it up. Okay, for the month of April, we have consideration of adoption of a resolution declaring a public nuisance for the annual fire hazard fuel reduction program and approval of an amendment to the 2024 fire hazard fuel reduction program agreement. Consideration of adoption of a resolution updating the travel policy. Consideration of adoption of a resolution approving the updated CCSD personnel policies, procedures, and rules. Discussion and consideration of adoption of an ordinance 01-2025, adding chapter 6.05 to the CCSD Muni Code regarding weed abatement standards. A public hearing to discuss and consider to fix water and wastewater standby or availability charges as provided in Government Code Section 61124B, and consideration of adoption of a resolution fixing water and wastewater standby or availability charges for fiscal year 25-26. And that's all that I have.
Okay. Anything from the board members?
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
just follow up on a comment I made at the discussion of the weed abatement ordinance. I don't know how specific this should be as a future agenda item, but the fire protection committee next week will be appointing a couple 3 ad hoc committees. One of them I intend to task with the developing updated weed abatement materials for the public. And I guess it would tie in with the, the process that was just described by Ms. Dodson. So I don't know if you want to put that on an agenda, future agenda is something you would want to, the board would get, because I think we would have some product to give the board
Okay.
at the next meeting.
So Ms. Dodson? Did you hear that?
Sorry,
I was just talking,
I was making notes.
updating public materials on the weed abatement program, essentially. We were going to work on that in the Fire Protection Committee next week.
Yeah.
And so we should have something to go to the board, to give to the board if they wanted to consider it.
Maybe May or
Maybe May, yeah, just before, so in time for the public to
Yeah.
see the materials before they actually have to do anything.
I don't think that will work with this current weed abatement season. So right now, the deadline for the 2025 Fire Hazard Fuel Reduction Program schedule is March 26th.
Mhm.
And it'll go before the board on April 10th. And the
Think-
Fire Protection Committee meets
I think
next Monday.
Yeah, I think what what I'm thinking of is this is public, just basically the stuff that we have for the public now on the weed abatement is strictly about the rules for vacant lots.
Yeah, so it could-
And if there's something equivalent we could put there on, on the website or
Yeah.
mail out or whatever, that tells people that, developed lots are now covered as well. It's public information. It's not so much, I don't think anything has to get
it's
passed.
not a resolution.
So it may
or
actually go
approval.
through, it may actually just go through, go through the fire chief, but we're going to work on those.
Yeah, I'll defer to Tim. I
Yeah.
know the notice to destroy weeds will be sent out the day following the board approval of the resolution. In regards to any changes to develop parcels, obviously the ordinance wouldn't be passed by
Right,
that.
so I see what you're saying. So basically, what will go out was the usual notice to the owners of undeveloped parcels only.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we currently have the schedule finalized as of yesterday. So once the board approves the resolution on April 10th, the first notice to destroy weeds would go out on April 11th.
Mhm.
And then I believe the next date for the second notice to destroy weeds was on May 23rd.
So this would be a probably parallel public notification, not the formal notice, but just something with, the new rules.
Yeah, but we can definitely put stuff on the
That's what I'm thinking.
website once the ordinance is in effect.
Yeah.
I can work with the fire chief and general manager on that, and we did plan on doing that anyway. So we can definitely do
So
that.
the committee ad hoc basically give some input into that to the fire chief. Work with
Sure.
the Fire chief on that.
Great.
Good.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted
Yes.
to quickly, sorry. I just wanted to quickly bring up, we had a number of comments from property owners with regard to the cost of weed abatement this past year from the service that we hired. And I'm wondering if there's some way of like alert, and just getting people to be more, how could we say it? To act more responsibly and if they can, and more effectively and as quickly as possible, taking care of what their obligation is, so they don't wind up getting a bill from someone because they neglected to do their responsibility, and therefore getting a large bill, and then they complain to us. So I don't know how we do that, but hopefully just to get them to be a little bit more responsible, and it works well for all concerned in the long run. Does that make any sense what I just said?
Yeah.
Sure, it does make sense. And we are currently working with Paradise Tree Service as we speak to get his updated rates for the 2025 Fire Hazard Fuel Reduction Program season. And once we get those rates, that will come before the board for approval on April 10th. And then it will be blasted out weekly throughout the entire weed abatement season. And anyone who submitted a public records request related to the 2024 Fire Hazard Fuel Reduction Program season will be getting the notice, because I did enroll them in the fire department's news and updates mailing list.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? Let's adjourn. It's 4:07:54. Good.